As the sun rose, marking the start of the day, a small scream came from Thera's tent while Ben was deciding what to have for breakfast. Him already having enough of a guess as to why that he didn't feel the need to check and was confirmed in his suspicions when his girlfriend carried Abel out by the scruff of her neck, looking far more awake than she would most mornings. "So, Abel's here?" "Yeah. She showed up last night. And any particular reason I woke up with her face an inch from mine? I was waiting to say hi," she added helpfully, leaving Thera to put her down and rub her eyes. "It's nice seeing you too, Abel. Next time, do me a small favor and just wait outside for me to wake up, pretty please?" Having the first thing she'd seen that morning be 2 empty eye sockets and a slightly too wide grin had left her feeling like she was on the edge of a heart attack no matter how harmless the intent might have been. Her pulse still racing and only slowing as she sat down, taking a plate from Ben while the rest of their camp slowly began to get up as well, packing away what gear they had and eating from their rations. With one hungry set of eyes on him. Even if he'd made sure to give her a plate as well, it was clear it wasn't what Abel had wanted, and he cast a small look at Thera. His girlfriend not remotely fazed by that point, only giving a small nod while she ate to let him know she'd heal him after as he cut himself and filled a cup, reaching out for the other girl's card before letting her drain it. "Well?" she asked, curiosity unable to be contained about how she'd grown while he'd looked it all over. "10 more to everything than what you'd gotten from me last time with the exception of your weeping. Getting 20 more. Even considering how I've changed since then, to me that would imply that either your weeping enhancement or your new job bonuses are interacting with your meat strengthening to improve what you'll get, and God, I am so jealous." She'd entirely stopped listening after finding out that she'd gotten a total of 40 points to her weeping, instantly holding her cup out for me. "No, you just get the one. I did make arrangements with the gods on your behalf though, so they'll start sending you some bodies that have been, shall we say, inoculated with divinity. You'll be pretty well fed until the end of the war, that's for sure." "Really? Really? Really? So stop trying to eat me." Okay, I can do that," she told him, sounding full of resolve even as drool rolled down her lip. "Can you at least try to stop smelling so tasty so it's not so tempting? Believe me, if I could, I would. For now though, sit tight. I need to go wake the stragglers." While most were up, it seemed there were a few still struggling with it, and as the one in charge, he took on the role of changing that, going from tent to tent to awaken each one that was left and watching as they groggily got up and began packing like the rest, eating what they could until finally, the entire crowd was ready to go. Stolen from its rightful place, this narrative is not meant to be on Amazon. Report any sightings. "All right everyone, a bit of good news came to us during the night," Ben called out, getting their attention and directing it to the girl beside him. "This is Abel, a third tier who'd also been sent to look for Faust, and she'd already scouted ahead, so we'll have a new direction to follow, and even better, we'll be able to get through it a lot quicker in general too now by combining her efforts with Thera's. If you both don't mind, want to set up?" Thera nodded, spending her mana on the ground around them to create a vessel that could carry the group while Abel bit into her wrist, letting her blood drop to the ground to create a few of her monstrosities, while Ben continued to explain. "Abel is able to track through her creations, and Thera is able to carry the rest of us so we aren't stuck trekking through the woods. This should drastically raise our speed in finding him, and we should all be safer for it too. So for now, get on and we'll get going." He saw bits of doubt in some eyes as they mentally tried to calculate the power needed to carry so many for such a prolonged period of time through magic alone, but they all did as he said, getting into the vessel Thera had built and feeling the surprise of it rising up with ease, Abel standing by her side to help give directions. "Left from here and keep going. I'll get you to adjust when we need to." "Sounds good," Thera nodded, their new journey beginning above the treetops, giving them a straight line to move while only Abel's creations remained below, running with all they had as they tracked the shifters sent through the forest below, letting the rest of the group get as comfortable as they could while Ben quietly asked the one question he'd been putting off. "Abel, do you smell anything with Faust? Something he might be chasing or might be running with him?" "No." "Great. So what does that mean?" He could still be operating under something else's control, which was a problem, and Ben could think of at least a few ways that another person could hide any signs of themselves from being tracked if there was someone secretly with him, yet none of it told him what they'd be walking into when they'd finally meet, nor the sorts of dangers it would hold for all of them. Worst to worst, if something is controlling him, I need to be prepared for the chance that it could control everyone here too, but, ugh, I don't want to have to try and fight a huge swarm of allies again. Not to mention at least 1/3 tier, maybe 2 depending on if Abel ends up controlled. I don't care how much more powerful I am. I already felt like I was going to die last time. God, could it be the same soul spell? Could be used at a crazy distance, and even if the nature of Faust's soul makes it seem like that shouldn't work, I really have no way to be sure. It sure seemed like the last demon to use it was the one who created it, but there's no guarantee that another one hadn't been able to figure it out themselves or somehow stolen it from them, and no, I have no way to know. I can't let myself fall into guesses and preconceived notions. When we find him, one way or another, I'll figure out whatever's happening here. It was all he could do, but with the answer he couldn't help but look at Abel. However it had turned out, this was one of the first people she'd gotten to know since coming to the world. What was she dealing with? And are you doing okay? Huh? Yeah, why wouldn't I be? She asked back in genuine confusion, getting a shrug in return. I don't know. Just figured I should check if you're worried at all? What? Nah, whatever's going on, the perv's going to be fine. Okay, figures. If she were really worried, then she wouldn't have gotten distracted enough by eating to make the gods feel the need to send out another force. Still, despite his worries, he couldn't help but hope that she'd be proven right in the end. The entire day spent flying showed more than anything else how much of a lead Faust had, watching the sun start to set by the time they broke free of the woods and left the untamed lands of the planet, getting to see some signs of logging activity that had gone on down below, telling them all that some sort of settlement had to have been nearby. Thera, take us down lower, Ben told her. Even if it's slim, if we see anyone, then I can check to see if they might have found anything. Got it. Their craft descended, but not so low they could touch the ground. With the light they still had, they could see Abel's monstrosities running ahead of them, following Faust's scent as they continued on, finding no one along the way until the edge of a village appeared in the distance. Abel? He passed through it. Okay, good. For now, Thera, stop at the edge of the village and let us out. Since we're here, we're asking around. Everyone, break into your groups and talk to who you can about if any unfamiliar faces have passed through here in the last few days and if they noticed anything that stood out about them if they did. The more information we can get about whatever might have left Faust cutting contact, the better, even if it's going to delay us by a few hours. By using the power of both Thera and Abel together, he was confident that they'd be able to catch up to him, but with no knowledge still about whatever was happening, he judged it best to take the chance at reconnaissance while they had it for whatever clues it might give. With the speed they could move, they had to be gaining on him but still not knowing what they'd find. A couple hours of investigation might mean the difference between life and death. So with the order given they got out and moved, breaking into their groups and splitting up once they got to the village. Abel quietly sniffing at the air and going of her own way with a look of confusion on her face while Ben and Thera walked by themselves, both instantly able to tell that something was wrong. Even if it's late, you'd still expect 1 or 2 people to be out at this time, Thera muttered. Yeah, you'd also expect some noise, or in my case, the presence of even a single soul to connect to in any of the houses we've passed. A ghost town, then? It's not like it's uncommon for some villages to have been abandoned by this point. Not exactly safe to live on the edge of the untamed lands when it's the hardest area to clear out compared to any demons trying to survive in places with civilization around. MMH, you're not wrong. But something feels off. The further they explored, the greater that impression got. Just walking down the streets, it was easy to see that a few doors and windows had been left open. Not exactly a priority to deal with when abandoning a place, yet still raised alarms in his head. He was no tracker, but he still noticed no signs of a rush. Anything to imply that whoever had lived there had been chased out or been in any sort of hurry, and without that, not bothering to even lock up behind them couldn't look anything other than odd. Which means we need to investigate the spooky abandoned town while it gets darker and darker. Ugh, I hate it here. The atmosphere couldn't help but feel eerie no matter how silly that might have been. So long as it was within the range of his soul, nothing could hide from him, and even beyond that, he had his sacrilege and soul sight to tell him if anything was hiding there. What even was there to fear? Ghosts. A phenomenon he'd encountered multiple times since ending up on that world? Monsters, like so many animals there would already look like to the humans of Earth? Yep, being silly. Okay, for now, the streets aren't showing anything new. We need a change of scenery, which means, I guess we should explore a few of the houses. He groaned, remembering what a bad idea splitting up always was in horror movies and feeling a pang of regret that he'd gotten his group to do it before entering the village. But, in my defense over any idiots deciding to split up while being hunted by a slasher, I'd been expecting a perfectly normal town. Not bothering to look for any door that was opened, Ben instead went to the closest closed one and tried the handle, finding it locked. Not an insurmountable issue though, as he felt it with his material senses to get the structure and used his magic to open it from the other side, frowning a bit as he did. Check latest chapters at novelfire.net. I feel like how easy that was made for a decent sign that I should up our home security a bit. If someone really wants to break in, then I think they'll be able to no matter what you do, Thera pointed out. I mean dash. And Auntie isn't going to let you booby-trap her home like you did your other place. I feel like I might be able to wear her down a bit. Our home also has 3 awakened skill holders plus Mora. What could anyone do if they wanted to? That's only if anything was tried while we're there. But okay, I get your point. Improving our home security can be a future project. For now, what stands out here to you? Nothing really. I guess it looks lived in. The house wasn't large, but it was what one might expect when walking into anyone's home. Some furnishing, a few knickknacks, and not completely tidy. An old glass of water was sitting on a side table, looking like it was waiting to be drunk, and a pair of shoes looked like they'd been kicked off without much care. A similar scene he would have expected to find if they'd walked into any home in Stonewall. But it also doesn't look like anyone's packed up to leave, he thought aloud. If they did abandon this place to try and move somewhere safer, then they didn't bother bringing anything with them, at least nothing obvious. A few portraits on the wall didn't have enough sentimental value. That doesn't mean anything for sure. Even if there's some emotional connection to some of this stuff, they could have left with the hope that one day they'd come back and only took what they thought was important. True. Let's look around some more first, I guess. With further investigation only strengthening Ben's feeling. While not much more to investigate, the bedroom didn't seem to have had anything packed away from it. Drawers were full of clothing and properly folded, and when they got to the kitchen, there were a few dishes waiting to be cleaned with a cold box to store food still half full. Oh, that's a bad sign, Ben muttered as he looked in it, with Thera in agreement. Nothing rotten or spoiled. Definitely paints a timeline for how long it could have been abandoned for. An even shorter one than you think, Ben said as he examined the enchanted item. This thing is painfully normal. No magic materials to power it, and the enchantments had to be done by someone with around the 4th level of the skill, which, while not bad for an everyday appliance, is seriously going to limit it. By how much? Whoever owned this would have had to have used their own mana to make sure it kept working, and those enchantments still had enough juice in them to keep them powered. Even with no one here. Whenever everyone disappeared in the village, it could only have happened within the last couple of days. They checked a few more houses from there and found mostly the same. Mostly. Nothing looked taken. There was still fresh food to be found, and the enchantments around still held a trickle of power. Yet occasionally, small things stood out. A knocked-over glass or chair. Items and food that looked more like they had been thrown than spilled. While in the cases of houses with open doors and windows it could be chalked up to animals getting in, that couldn't explain all of it, painting a subtle yet worrying picture of whatever had happened to the people living there and leaving the two to walk back in silence where most of them had already regrouped, leaving Ben to count heads at the end. Just one missing then. Abel. The one among them he needed to worry about the least. He still poked around the rest of their memories to see if any of them had spotted her in their own investigations before speaking up. All of you sit tight. I'll grab our last member, and then from there we'll get moving and discuss everything we've seen here. Even if there's not much to discuss. He'd found the same scenes in all of their minds, and most had come to similar conclusions as he and Thera. Whatever had happened to the town had been recent, and the fact that the shifter had passed through it was on all of their thoughts, each of them drawing different conclusions. Had whatever captured him done something, or had Faust himself? Was it a coincidence he'd passed through an abandoned village? Or was there some greater conspiracy at play? A proper reason for him to hide away without contacting the gods and sending them all on their tracking missions? All of their worries and his own swarmed his head as he went, eventually breaking into the other end of the village, seeing Abel there. Normally expressive, her face had taken on a more neutral mask, her focus so great as she stared out that she didn't immediately acknowledge him even as he reached her side. "Abel, you okay here?" "Of course I am," she told him, still focusing off in the distance. "All right, well that looks like a lie. What did you find?" "You're a peeker. Check my head yourself. I know you're not a fan of that, and since you're my friend, I'm asking. If you found something or if you have any thoughts, then tell me. You know, I don't really get this world a lot of the time," she sighed. "Don't get me wrong. I like it here, but you all treat life so heavily, you know? Usually, you can't even kill a guy for trying to rob you without it being a big thing. But where I grew up, killing each other over food was just how the day would go, you know? Yeah, your old reality. Well, from what I can tell, it seemed tough. This tale has been unlawfully obtained from Royal Road. If you discover it on Amazon, kindly report it. I guess? I mean, good or bad, I don't really care about that stuff, but it was different, and the old perv did a decent job trying to make sure I knew how it was different, the rules you all live by and the common sense, and I'm doing great at them. Fitting right in, and I don't even mind the fact that I can't just hunt someone that looks tasty enough most of the time, you know? Plus, every now and then I find some pals like you who don't mind sharing a bit. Well, what can I say, it's interesting. And I don't know if I get that either, she laughed. But that's okay. We're both otherworlders, we're not always going to fit in perfectly, and there might be things we're going to have to learn along the way, even all these years later. But Faust, he's native, and at least as far as I can tell, even if he's a pervert, the guy's principled. At least, according to this planet's principles. There's things he wouldn't do. Abel, where's this going? You're clever, Benny boy. You must have noticed that everyone here disappeared around the time Faust passed through. I did, yeah. I think most of the group picked up on that. Get the impression your senses are pretty dull though. Huh? They're slowly improving, but overall, compared to yours? Yeah, they are. Thought so. Don't feel too bad about it though. It seems like it was too subtle for anyone else here to pick up either. I'm just too good. Yeah? And what did you find? Blood. Not spilt anywhere, and the traces are maybe a day and a half old. But everyone who was here is definitely dead, and it could only have been the perv who did it. How sure are you? Completely. No signs of panic around, right? But that makes sense because I can tell from the smell alone. Whenever his shape changes, so does his scent, so it can be a bitch to keep track of if you aren't as good as me. But I can follow it pretty easily. Shrinking and growing across this whole place. Small when he needed to get into places, probably when he wanted to hide too, and big when he wanted a bite. You're telling me he ate these people? Everyone in the village. I don't see any bodies, do you? And like I was saying before, the smell of blood. I told you nothing was spilt, and that's true, but even without missing a drop, it's gonna carry on your breath, you know? Only sign at all, and even then, it only hung around 'cause the air in some of these places is stagnant. So a third tier killed and ate an entire village of people, he said more definitively, rubbing at his eyes from the strain while Abel looked at him. But he wouldn't do that. He may be a pervert and a loser and way weaker than me, but one of the first things he ever told me about his skill when I asked was that he doesn't kill people for power. Maybe if he did then he would have been better than me, and I was pretty interested in his ability until then, but that's just not his thing. I know it's not, he sighed. I have been in his head after all. I've seen who he is, which makes this so much worse than I'd wanted to hope. Worse than killing a village? Yeah, because you're right. He wouldn't do that, and since you don't smell anything with him and he hasn't contacted the gods, all of this really does wrap together to the worst possible option. When you guys fought, I couldn't control him to make him stop, but something else could. Meaning there's a demon on this stupid planet with the power to take over a third tier. with a range way greater than I have and the ability to dominate his composite soul. He'd known it was possible from the start. He'd just spent the entire time hoping there was another answer, but it was time to give up on that belief. Whether it was the power of a demon contender or something that had crossed the threshold to the third tier themselves, they'd gotten control of one of the future gods of that world and one of the most powerful options among them at that. Myriad, I need you. Code Red. What is it? Hit a little snag in this investigation. We haven't found Faust yet, but he is, with little doubt in my mind, being controlled by something powerful. What makes you so sure? He ate a village. What? Yeah, Abel's confirmed that everyone within it is either dead or gone, which, let's be real, means everyone's dead. We're lacking in information right now and we'll do our best to solve it. But there's a different issue here too that needs to be addressed. A bigger issue than the shifter being under a demon's control and eating an entire village of people. Yes, we don't know what's got him, nor the overall power and range of it, but what we do know is who we are as the group that's following him. I personally didn't have the power to control Faust, which means whatever's doing it is likely more powerful than me in that regard, and not just all of the second tiers among us. Including myself, there's 2 third tiers potentially available to become victims too, and while there's only so much harm I could do, Abel is a different matter. I don't believe that should be an issue for either of you. Myriad said after a moment's thought. Abel's mental structure's alienness has made significantly more sense ever since you found out she has outsider blood in her, and your mental structure is incomparable to anything this universe has seen or likely will ever see again. All the more so since her mental structure imprinted on your mind as well, only increasing its alienness. Frankly, even if the odds are low, if she is taken over, I don't believe for a second you would be. You are aware that her being taken over is the bigger problem, right? I don't want to have to try and fight both Faust and Abel at once. I will literally die. Then test it out yourself and see how you do against her. Not exactly a guarantee, given I failed with Faust too. But still better than nothing. Fair. Okay. Abel, now that we know this, I need to test something on you. What? If Faust is being controlled, then that means there's a chance you and everyone else with us can be controlled too. It's not a guarantee, but since I can do a similar thing, I'd like you to allow me to try and take over your mind. If I can, then that'll mean you'll have to leave after showing us the way. What dash? Abel, he said firmly. Fighting Faust will be dangerous enough. If we end up having to fight you too, then I don't want to imagine what the death toll is going to look like. If you can't let me test at least this much, then we'll have to split here anyway because I can't accept that sort of risk. Ugh. Fine, do it then. Thank you. With permission given, he made his way into her head, trying to merge at the deepest level he could and feeling it barely not work when he tried to take control from her. Her mental structure really was alien in its nature in a way that almost felt greasy, able to be touched but not clung to, and left him to scrunch his brow while her own look grew smug. Can't do it then, huh? She laughed. Well, don't worry about that. I wouldn't have lasted a day back home if I were that easy to handle. You know, I haven't specifically brought this up to you before, but you do realize your home was a post-apocalyptic hellscape, right? Seems like a pretty heavy judgment to make there. It's a big multiverse. I'm sure there's plenty of universes like mine. So here's the thing, I'm actually getting lessons from the Gray about the broader multiverse, and I can guarantee there aren't. Neat. Doesn't matter though. Since you can't control me, that means I get to help save the pervs. Sorry, but... Yeah, you do, he sighed. But on the very real chance that whatever demon is better at mind control than me, do me a favor and try to fight it off just hard enough that you won't end up killing me, okay? What do you take me for? Nothing's getting control of me. It's the other weaklings with us that need to worry. Oh, trust me here. I'm already worried. Okay, this is going to be a nightmare, but let's go back. We need to talk to the rest of them, and while we're doing that, we need to keep tracking Faust. Ensure your favorite authors get the support they deserve. Read this novel on the original website. All right, the nature of what we're dealing with has likely been determined after that investigation and is going to affect our plans going forward. Ben addressed the adventurers once they were in the sky. Faust is being controlled, and considering he's known for a skill that can specifically be used in combat scenarios, that should indicate the level of seriousness encountering him should imply. I'll start with the biggest issue here. When we find him, none of you will be helping to fight the shifter. Not only because of the risk he poses but what it implies as well. I've personally gone up against a demon able to exert control over people in the past, and it was horrific to try and survive, so unless any of you think you have some innate resistance to mind control of all types, not just dark magic, speak now and then we can test to confirm it. He waited a beat but none spoke up, at least on that matter, though a different one was broached before he could continue. If he is being controlled, what should we do if not fight? Wash asked. As dangerous as anything with that sort of mind-controlling power might be, it can't be ignored and we can't leave the shifter to repeat whatever happened there. You're correct, but it won't be ignored and we won't just leave him until we can figure something out. Both myself and Abel are resistant to mental attacks due to our unique mental structures, and while there is always a risk that it still might not be enough depending on what we're up against, the two of us are unfortunately not only the best options here but potentially the best options on the planet. That's not to say that you'll all be doing nothing, of course, but how much you might contribute is going to be directly related to the situation we find him in. How we'll handle finding him on the road is going to be different from if he's in a town, but either way, your main jobs will be to protect both yourselves as well as anyone else around while hopefully drawing as little attention as possible. The absolute worst scenario he could think of would be if they too managed to get taken over in a crowded town or city and helped rain down havoc on innocent civilians around them, or worse, focused on strengthening Faust. What power the shifter had was influenced heavily by what he'd kill. Eating them wasn't a necessity, but it still meant that he would get both the form and the skills of any person he murdered. Which I suppose means the worst possible scenario would be any of these guys getting killed by Faust and then him claiming their skills too, but I can at least hope whatever demon has control of him can see the sense of not putting all of its eggs in one basket. If Faust ends up claiming a soul with a skill on it that would get him freed, then that would be bad for it too. Man, I already don't want to be absorbed into Myriad when I die. I really hope I don't get forced into Faust's soul instead, even if getting my mind skill might be exactly the thing to break him from this. I am not that self-sacrificing. Speaking to them all only a little longer, taking and answering questions from any who had them. With the sun now set, he gave them the order to try and get what rest they could before moving to where Thera sat at the front, Abel already asleep on her thighs. You know, she must trust you if she's fallen asleep on you twice by this point, he pointed out quietly, not wanting a loud conversation to disturb the others, even with the sounds of the wind being loud enough to cover most of it as they flew. But are you sure you don't need to go down for a rest too? Without her, we're flying a bit blind anyway. She told me she was far enough ahead that a 10-minute nap would be fine. I'll just wake her when that passes, and as for me, well, I'll take us down in another couple hours to have a short sleep. I'm more concerned about you. This is what? Day 3 you've been awake now? You need some proper rest. I feel fine. Ben dash. No, like, I'm being completely serious. I feel super fine. I'm not remotely tired. He hadn't been since reaching the 3rd tier, even if he'd still forced himself to sleep for the sake of it, but now, in a time where every hour counted, he was beginning to wonder just how much he needed by that point in general. There was no telling what aspects of his mind might have changed in ways he hadn't discovered yet, but he was growing more and more confident that his sleeping requirements was one of them, leaving Thera to glance at him before shaking her head. Fine, but if you do feel tired, you make sure you take a nap. I don't want to find out this is from adrenaline or stress and that you're going to collapse as soon as it wears off, especially if I'm not going to be around to help you. You mad about that? How can I be? She groaned. It's not like I was able to do anything the last time we dealt with a mind controller. I'm just worried. What if you end up needing help and there's no one else around? Then I'll call you, he told her, flickering the bind between them for effect. You feel that, then come running my way. I'll only do it if I think you'll be safe. You can also do it if you're not sure, you know? Ha! But then I'd be stuck fighting you a second time, and I'm not sure I have the strength to overcome your infinite mana once more. Much safer for me to try and just not die. Besides, maybe it will be easier than either of us are expecting. The only reason the last demon was so hard was because he was a prophet and could tell that I could break his connection to anything that got too close before I could try. So long as we aren't dealing with another time mage, I might be able to free Faust instantly. Hell, if it tries to get me, I might even be able to fry its brain with the unrestrained might of my own mind. There's a chance this could be super easy. Do you really believe that's going to happen? Not really, but since it's possible, it's nice to hope, he groaned. The fact that this thing is controlling someone I couldn't is stressing me out and making me worried about how I'll stack up. MMH, it would be embarrassing if the world's newest mind god immediately met someone better. She tried to tease to lighten the mood. Already finding someone more powerful than you? Hey now, I'm not a god of mind control. Just a contender for it. I mean, whatever the demon has, it's almost certainly a contender for it too. I can't be the best at everything. Aha, and how do you really feel? It's eating me up inside, he said as he slumped down. I've been through too much for anything on this world or any other to still be better at mind skills than me at this point, third tier or not. Whenever we find this thing, I'm going to have to dissect its brain for purely research purposes, but also mostly to figure out what the hell it's doing to be better at this than me. So long as it dies in the end. Don't worry, one way or another it will. We'll make sure of that. Letting Thera stop to sleep and eat for just a few hours before the sun rose. It wasn't long until they were on their way again, once more speeding through the clouds, only dropping back down when Abel spoke up. You're coming to another site. Maybe 4 hours behind. 4 hours isn't bad. Slowly but surely they were gaining on him, the shifter fast but all of them faster thanks to Thera covering the transport, with her carrying them down closer to the ground but without stopping, the lower altitude solely to run a minor investigation of what Abel had seen fit to point out. With it being a town that time, marking their fourth settlement which by all accounts had seemed empty to her when she'd raced through it using her creations but still demanded at least a cursory look for survivors, even if they had to do what they could to make it quick. Every delay meant that someone else could die somewhere farther ahead, but any intel there might have been to gain from anyone who hadn't been killed would have been invaluable. Even if Ben quickly found that once more, it wasn't meant to be. Flying above the rooftops, he stretched out his soul as far as it would go, hoping to find someone, anyone, yet once more the place was left empty and barren. Same as the rest, and a result that left him clenching his jaw before speaking up. Nothing, let's move on. If Faust was here only a few hours ago, then that means we're close. So Thera, do you think you can go any faster? It will make it hard for me to react and put more strain on my mana. But yeah, I can if you help me out. Got it. He sped up her thoughts to compensate for the increase in speed and felt the instant acceleration as he started dumping his mana into her pool, with his regeneration rate creating enough leeway to help top up what she was losing as they went, helping them make more and more progress as the time ticked down until eventually something appeared in the distance, leaving a sinking pit in his stomach. Somewhere he'd been to briefly before, ahead was a city. Not one he'd ever seen from that angle, but his mind was perfect and easily able to rearrange the buildings he'd seen from within its limits to tell him he'd been within its bounds in the past and let him know exactly what he'd left there. A gate, the network utilized by people the world over and the very thing that would give the shifter access to the planet as a whole. Would he use it or just kill his way across the place like he did the last? Ben wondered. If he's being actively controlled, then there has to be some sort of range between him and whatever's controlling him, which would mean it wouldn't make sense to let him through when that would either break the effect or create room for the effect to wear off. But what if it's more passive? What if his mind's been restructured somehow to make him an obedient slave instead of leaving whatever did this to him needing to constantly supply new commands? If that's the case, then he could go anywhere to fulfill the role he'd been given, and from everything we've seen, he's being made to kill. Damn. If you encounter this story on Amazon, note that it's taken without permission from the author. Report it. Abel, how far from him would you say we are? A few minutes. We're catching up. Okay. Give me a moment. Myriad. We've almost caught up to him, but Faust has just reached the gate city of Wellinot. Whatever you have to do to make it happen, get the gate blocked as soon as you can. Hell, get the closest earth or ice or barrier mage to completely seal it off, I don't care what. We can't have so much as a fly getting through. Well, you'd better start working on it while I do my best to sort things out on the other side. All right, everyone, we're going to do the best we can here, but we're going to have to work fast, which means expect a rough landing. Group 1. Contact the Adventurers Guild and tell them there's an emergency in the city. Make them aware of everything we know as quickly as possible. Group 2, the same thing but for the local guards. Remaining groups, this is a gate city, so your job will be to keep anyone from coming in and leaving until the gods finish arranging having it blocked off or getting someone else to help, and you need to remember, he could look like anything. Person, a pet, a bug, you can't let anything through. Should anyone give you any issues, tell them you're under orders from the Apostle of Myriad as well as 2/3 tiers. Do whatever it takes to get the seriousness of this across while myself and Abel do our best to handle the situation. So I'm on the gate? Thera asked him. You are. If you want to encase the entire thing in stone, I say go for it and just keep anyone else from breaking it down. Even if he escapes from us here, I don't want him getting in the network. With Abel there, he didn't think they'd lose him, but he didn't want to take the risk. Faust was there, just needing to be found, and as Thera came to a sudden stop at the city's edge, the change in momentum throwing them all forward for how quick it had been, they wasted no time jumping out of their craft and running, feeling their feet pound on the ground below them for all of a few steps until faced with an instant need to change their plans entirely as he connected to the group to tell them as much, slowing down in the face of who he could already see in the distance. Faust, the true shifter, waved happily to them, a bright smile on his lips from across the street as he called out, seeming light and casual and completely happy to see them as he spoke up. Well, I wasn't expecting to see you again so soon, now was I? Ben, Thera, Abel, what brings you all out here? With the world frozen around him for the question, Ben faced a completely different problem. A mistake based on a faulty assumption. When Faust had walked over, he'd entered Ben's range, showing him that everything he'd thought he'd had to deal with was wrong. In those first milliseconds, Ben did all he could, pulling the rest of the adventurers with him into his head to tell them what he'd found and how that was going to change their plans while also not bothering to call out to Myriad, instead directly sending a part of himself to his god's realm and connected to him to force the deity's perception of time up to match his own. We have an emergency. We already had an emergency. Okay, a worse one. I was wrong. Mostly wrong. Wrong where it mattered. Ben, take a breath. Faust isn't under anyone's control, he told his god, ignoring that advice. At least not in the way I'd been expecting. He's become a demon. All right, I need you to explain what you mean by that. The thing he was out to hunt? He killed it. Easy, no problem, because of course he could. He's a 3rd tier and he's decked out in some of the best armor I could make. The problem is what he killed and how it integrated with him. God. Does this explain where at least some of what I'd been assuming was PTSD was coming from and why he couldn't get past the sorrow? For my sake, please try to think and speak in a somewhat linear manner. Faust absorbs souls. Ben went on as he started to pace. Everything he kills becomes a part of him, which normally seems pretty fine. I mean, as fine as something like that could be once you get past all of the pesky ethical issues that comes with it, but demons are different. They're natural soul magic users, and hell, I've seen firsthand what using their souls could mean. You remember the first time I tried using a demon's soul with an enchanted beast form skill? It took control of my arm and tried to kill me, and that wasn't even for one of the sapient ones. Meanwhile, Faust has been killing who knows how many, adding them to his collective soul each time and basically slowly infecting him like a toxin building up that finally reached its tipping point. All of them, every demon soul that's ever become a part of him has been leaving a strain on his mind and soul, and then he went and absorbed one from a demon that was a contender for their soul magic of all things, and, like with the demon in my arm, it took over but completely. It looks like it has access to everything Faust was as far as memories go, but it's absolutely the demon contender in control, and lucky it, because it passed the step where it needed to awaken first and jumped straight to godhood. Oh, empty skies, his god muttered, the weight of what Ben was saying inescapable. I have to ask, but are you sure? I'm the greatest mind reader on the planet, of course I'm sure, which just leaves what to do. Ben, I'll set up an emergency meeting and inform the others, but there's only one thing you can do. I'm not killing Faust. No, because you also have to seal his soul away or condemn it, whatever choice is easier on you. Myriad told him, his voice showing an equal level of disdain for the idea that Ben felt hearing it. We can't have a newly ascended demon god on the planet, especially not one like that. If what you're telling me is right, then even if he's been taken over, he is Fos too and he is globally known. I don't know how much, but he'll immediately have access to Faith and it might only get worse from there. I've got other options to test out. And how sure are you of them? His god asked. Ben, it's in his nature to absorb souls of the things he kills, and we don't know how that's going to present itself when he gets up here, but if I had to suggest the worst-case scenario, if he kills a god, then he'll absorb and become that god too, gaining access to whatever faith and domains of power they have to make him immediately substantially stronger. Maybe strong enough to kill more too, repeating the process. Getting their names and divinities and sources of faith from their worshippers, it would be a chain reaction where every kill would make him significantly more powerful to kill even more until no one up here would be able to handle him. And then what? This planet is left with a singular demon god of everything, and the mortals of this world are left to see what that means for their future. Did you know this text is from a different site? Read the official version to support the creator. Don't know, but I can tell you this. Sealing his soul isn't a guarantee when he's a shapeshifter. Sure, I can do my best to shove a soul crystal in him. He has some exposed bits of flesh around the far too good armor I made him that I'm already going to need to contend with, but if he gets it out of him without me knowing and we kill him, then he's instantly going to be your problem. That makes killing him a far worse choice than trying to find another way. Which still leaves condemning. He's a third tier. I haven't even condemned anyone at the second. Who's to say it would work? You're the coming god of sacrilege, Ben, of course it would work. And unless I completely run out of options, I'm not doing it. He's been putting himself through hell for this world. Myriad. He deserves a chance to be saved. The fact that he's put himself through so much means that he would understand too, his god said, continuing before Ben could argue anymore. But all right, I trust you to do the right thing, and even if it's difficult, I really would prefer to see him saved too. So, what are you going to do? Simple. Kill the demon and save the man. How hard could that be? Faust, you won't believe how happy I am to see you. Ben grinned, putting on the best act he could while trying to keep the rest with him from looking outright hostile as he began his plan to save the shifter and already felt it struggle. Were you called for this quest too? No, I haven't heard anything about it, he said, looking genuine. What's going on? God, it's a hell of a thing, but multiple villages have gone missing. He groaned, letting the happy look slip from his face while trying to force something more serious. We were sent to investigate. There's been other places across the planet where entire settlements have gone missing without any sign. But with how fresh these ones seem to be, we're trying to see if they're connected at all. Speaking of, Group 1 and 2, go report our findings to the guild. He told them, with both being sent to relay the current danger. They'll want that report as soon as possible, no matter how small it is. Small? Didn't find much then? God. I wish I had better news, but it looks like they just vanished. I mean, I'm not the best investigator, but even the team I'm with couldn't find anything substantial either. It's a nightmare. I hope your last mission went a lot better. Oh, believe me, it did. Yeah? The armor I made you held up okay then? He asked as he nodded at it. Doesn't look dinged up at all? Did you even get a chance to test it out? Oh, of course, he said, wearing a grin of his own. It was marvelous. To think that any item could, well, let's just say that everything that tried its luck against it was quick to learn the value of such a thing, and to think you hold both the skills and knowledge to make more. The other's eyes gleamed as he said it, forcing Ben to try and hide the way hearing that from a being who had the power to take all he had after taking his life made his stomach flip, instead giving a happy laugh. Well, you ever want to commission more? I'd be happy to accept from such a good customer. I see, the monster with Faust's form said, his mind instantly giving away the very thing the beast wanted to hide, the fact that he knew that Ben and the others knew he'd been involved with what happened. The demon who'd become Faust had needed a moment to process all that his senses had been telling him, but once he did, it had been obvious. The subtle signs of tensed muscles in the people at Ben's back, their bodies warming as their heart rates spiked with the anticipation of combat, subtle looks in their eyes that not all of them could completely suppress, but more than any of that were the smells. Fear and adrenaline both having their unique aromas to such a sensitive nose, and while how both would come off from various races across dozens of worlds was sure to vary, one thing was undeniable. All of it had been prompted by looking at him, and they were expecting a fight. With that leading to the knowledge that he was before a mind reader as well. From the beginning, he'd done his best to hide his thoughts, yet Faust had never known the depth of Ben's skill, but with the realization made he was sure that Ben had become aware as well, becoming the starting sign for the battle to come with Ben's superior thought speed allowing him to move first, bringing up the ground beneath the other's feet to take advantage of the one weakness the armor he'd made held by stabbing spikes up and through the man's calves while at the same time he screamed out, marking the signal for the rest of them to follow the orders they'd been given. Move! In one movement they did as they were told, the other adventurers running away to protect and evacuate the civilians around them while he, Thera, and Abel stayed to fight, two of them moving in their own ways as Thera tore up the stone streets to bring them crushing down on him while Abel joined, creating and moving her monstrosities to wrap the demon in her flesh to hold it in place, with neither being enough to trap him as he grew in size, smashing through the restraints and breaking free while he laughed. A shame, I was hoping to do this with a touch more subtlety, but I suppose it is what it is. The demon told them with an exaggerated shrug, how chatty it was being catching Ben slightly off guard. He'd thought he'd understood in the beginning, the demon trying to put on an act for its conveniences, but the fact that it was still speaking and, more importantly, how it was doing so caught his attention. Even if it's a demon mind in control, it's operating on different hardware. I wonder how that's affecting it? A cursory curiosity that didn't matter in the end. With one step it had lunged forward, looking at him first as it instantly broke the distance and would have impaled Ben with growing spikes if not for the fact that he could see the other's movement and react at least with his magic. Loading it in the things he wore to pull himself out of the way while at the same time actualizing a wall behind him. Feeling it, the demon crashed into it, but that monster shaking off the impact in the same moment with a grin on its lips and magic of its own. Instantly, screams were erupting around them. The fight too quick for anyone in the area to have evacuated as the city was flooded with demons, as far as their eyes could see, with only Ben and Abel able to spot the truth. Illusions, hundreds of them all around them and matching the 9th-leveled high-light magic Ben could see on his opponent's soul. Without using eyes to see and relying on her numerous other senses, there was nothing to fool Abel either, with the creations giving off neither smell nor sound but still a disaster as they enveloped the people around them, the ones with magic already trying to use it to save themselves without seeing the people hidden within those spells and forcing Ben to spend his mana as he looked around, materializing enchanted amulets on the necks of Thera and every adventurer under him, powered by his own high level of light resistance to let them see through it as he screamed out more orders. Keep the people under control and get out of here already. Don't let anyone recklessly attack each other. So you can even beat this so easily? The demon laughed. Oh, I simply must make your power my own. The demon spent his mana as he said that. The skills Ben had helped Faust raise while he'd been making the man his armor now directed at him as flames and illusions of the same both came forth, mixed together as one and shot at him to try and hide where the real danger would be, but brought down by Thera raising up a wall in front of them while she attacked in turn, trying to hold their opponent tight with her non-affinity power while Abel's true body came in as well, being swiped away as what had been his head turned into a powerful arm and broke through Thera's hold, leaving Abel skidding down the street. Ben didn't have time to worry about that though. An attack like that wouldn't be enough to keep her down. No, his greatest concern was what he'd just heard, the demon wanting to take claim of his soul. Potentially what would be the worst option by far. Neither Faust nor the demon who'd claimed him would know it. They undoubtedly saw him as nothing more than the easiest third tier to take in their expected conquest. But he was the coming god of sacrilege and already held a higher level to the skill than any other mortal had ever achieved for any ability. Killing him would be a nightmare for the world, made only worse for what would happen if someone else killed the demon after. His thoughts flashed to what Myriad had said, how dangerous Faust could already potentially be if he ascended to godhood and how much infinitely worse that would be if he ascended with Ben's skills too. If Faust was likely to have access to a bit of faith immediately, then the same was likely true for himself as well given all he'd done. It would all combine together into a near guarantee that the demon would wreak havoc on the higher realm and all who called it home. With the only potential positive being that there's a slim chance that the current nature of my mind might turn me into the dominant personality, but I don't think I want to take that risk. With all of the danger, though, Do I just give in and condemn him? Myriad's right, the risk is high and everything I'm doing is having a minimal effect because even if it hasn't ascended yet, that's at least somewhat the soul of a god. My only other option might take me up to 20 minutes, which isn't as bad as a proper god. But, no, I'm not taking the easy way out. I will save him. We will save him. A case of content theft. This narrative is not rightfully on Amazon. If you spot it, report the violation. With how much the other wanted him, it was easy enough to keep the shifter in his range, even if he had to be careful. He'd had demons cut off Connect before once they understood the nature of it, and he'd had them damage his soul for it as well, meaning he had to use it in the same way he would to hide it from the gods, flicking it in and out at high enough speeds that the other wouldn't be able to perceive it, and he couldn't risk losing access to that skill or else all hope of saving Faust really would be lost. But with his attention on Ben, that made things easier. He didn't need to worry about attacking, both Thera and Abel could do that. All Ben needed to do was enough to make it seem like he was putting up a fight, while really his focus could remain on dodging and doing whatever he could to keep its attention, speaking up to do just that. "So, what's even the plan here?" he asked it as the demon lengthened its arm to try and swipe at him. Only just missing as Thera cut the unarmored part of it off while Abel rushed over to scarf it down for what extra strength it would give her. "The jig's up. We know what you are and the gods know what you are. You won't be able to last long, even if you kill us." "Do you really believe that?" He laughed as poison spewed from his breath, forcing Thera back while Ben chose to bet on his innate resistance being enough to manage it, feeling it burn his throat but nothing more. The body of this fool, he could have stood atop the world, greater than any of his gods, yet he chose not to, able to take what he'd kill for his own. A power so wasted on him was in the wrong hands from the start, but now it can show its true value. "You think your pathetic gods can kill me? Will they be able to when I take you, Abel, Thera, and everyone else you'd come here with? Damn. So desperate that you'd even go after a few weak adventurers? Kind of sad, not gonna lie." "Weak, huh?" It chuckled, seeing that the poison it had created wasn't working and switched instead to firing off hardened quills. A quick peek in his head showing they were coated with a powerful acid and forced Ben to deflect them from his path. "I'd been fooled for a moment, but you were never out to investigate my feeding grounds. You were out looking for this." He touched his chest. The demon using the context Faust's memories gave him to figure out the truth of their mission, and looked all the smugger for it as he went on. Would the world send anyone so weak out to look for a missing third tier? A godling? Disappeared with no signs as to why? "No, perhaps not all of them, but you've brought me a feast of second tiers, and it would be rude not to partake." A gleam in his eye as the conversation made the demon change his perspective and immediate goal. In an instant his form shrunk down to a bird, fast and agile in its design in an attempt to dart past him, but falling victim to Ben's actualization once more as walls were put up around him to hold the other in place, straining his mind as they were pushed against with greater and greater force until broken through. The now titanic man rushing backwards, still with a happy grin on his face as he went. "Another curious ability I look forward to getting from you. Your mind skill and your mind reading, this strange actualization, the materialization you use so freely, as well as the things you can make. You alone look like a feast, but sadly, it does seem best for appetizers to come first." With Group 3 the closest to him, the 4 they're still working to help the stragglers get away and bringing the demon just out of Ben's reach as he rushed to react but slowed in a way he hadn't expected. Dizziness washing over him from the effects of the actualization. He'd put his all into being destroyed and his mind taking the toll. Appraising himself the best he could. He could feel a drop of blood running down his nose and the side effects of it already slipping away, but it was enough to stall him from acting. Getting to see the growing panic in the eyes of the people that Group was protecting while they held forth their weapons. None of them going to have any effect. He'd seen firsthand what everyone under him had been carrying, and none had any chance of getting through the armor the man wore, no matter how they might have tried to defend themselves. But just when all seemed like it was reaching its end, a change in the environment occurred as Thera cast her magic, putting up a barrier and separated them from the world around them, leaving Faust to turn back when he couldn't break through. "Thera." Ben thought at her, needing her opinion before things went on. "How long do you think you can keep that up?" "In theory, days." She thought back. "In practice?" He's already managed to break through my non-affinity magic once, even if it was a different spell. If he really wants to, I'd bet he can do it again. Okay, so that just leaves us needing to keep him occupied enough that he won't think to. You focus on maintaining this, me and Abel will handle the rest. And are you okay? She was quick to ask. You looked off. Side effect of me thinking it would be a good idea to save on mana by actualizing instead and discovering what happens when my mental power loses. I'll be fine. The bigger concern was making sure they could keep him distracted for long enough to have a shot at the victory he wanted, and with the shifter already coming back at him. Ben slapped his cheeks, working through the wave of dizziness and pain to focus on what was to come. So, back to the main course? Ben taunted, trying to keep the focus on him while at the same time, Abel dropped her hominid form to wrap the demon and secure him to the ground with her flesh. Just couldn't resist the succulent meal before you compared to the finger food? Doesn't exactly matter in the end, I suppose, he said back, able to break Abel's hold on the ground below but not get her off of him. This entire world's going to be on my plate soon enough. What's it matter where I start? Fair. But you know what? While I've got you, I've got a little question for you. What's the end goal? I'm afraid I'm not quite sure what you mean, he said as his body combusted, attempting to burn Abel away but failing entirely for the protection of her own armor just under her skin. And I must say, I enjoy your work significantly less when someone else is using it. Yeah. I'm not really a fan of having to go up against my own products either, but what I mean is, you're going to become a god for all of this. The most powerful god. He clarified as he gave up on getting the girl off him in the moment in favor of a surprise attack, forcing Ben to jump up high in the air and hold himself there as worm-like structures with powerful, carnivorous jaws came bursting out from below his feet, the demon using Phos skill to grow parts of the shifter's body through the ground to attack. And yeah, I can almost get that, but there's one problem. Actually, a significant problem I'm hoping you can help me with, Ben said, already knowing the other man couldn't give him a satisfying answer, but still wanting to ask in the hopes of what psychological effects would come of it, with the other playing along. Oh, what? You demons have a single god. There's never been another worthy of worship until now. But see, that's the thing. Actually stop and think about that for a moment and you're going to know that's not true. You've got Phos memories since you pretended to know us to try and lull us into a false sense of security when we ran into you. That much is clear, so you must also know a few different facts about this world and its history. Even pre-system worlds occasionally had individuals who rose to godhood. The person you stole even specifically worshipped one who accomplished that. Saying I stole this doesn't exactly seem fair, he pointed out as he changed tactics, using what levels of air magic he held to create a high-pitched shriek, finally driving Abel off of him as her more sensitive senses left her to suffer for it. He tried to take my soul and he lost. It's as simple as that. You know what? Maybe that's even fair, but that's not the point here. Your people have own and own alone, but you've also had the majority of planets in the galaxy for thousands of years at this point, and if we go back before your people had the majority, you've still likely had thousands of worlds for tens of thousands of years. The math doesn't work out, you should be able to see that. The demons should have dozens, maybe even hundreds of gods of their own at this point, so where are all of them and why do you think you'll escape their same fate? A question that managed to get a reaction, forcing the other to freeze for the effect it had and letting both Abel and Ben get attacks in, the first jumping forward to eat the man's head while Ben materialized saws to cut through his legs, with both growing back before either could do more and watching as he started taking steps forward. You're right, that is strange, he acknowledged, his arms turning into long blades to try and swipe at Ben, while battering away Abel despite her repeated attempts to slowly eat away at him. There should be more, which means there must be something stopping us from reaching that height or getting rid of us after. Then you know it can only be one thing. He tried, feeling his stomach drop as the conversation failed to go the way he'd hoped. Yes, it would appear the god I worship has been killing us to avoid the competition, he concluded far too easily. But that doesn't matter. If he's going to kill me, then after I'm done consuming this world and eating your gods, I'll go and feast on him too. Only one power is needed among the stars, and it's mine. Support the author by searching for the original publication of this novel. Oh, exceptionally not good. One of the few things beyond violence, hunger, and bloodlust he'd seen in the minds of the sapient demons was a devotion to their deity, bred into them like so many other races in the world, and had left Ben hoping the revealed betrayal would have had a greater impact, but he was wrong. Either the thing's demonic nature made it easier to deal with, its God being nothing compared to its own well-being, or else it was the fact that it was no longer thinking with a demon brain, letting it bypass what sense of betrayal such a revelation demanded thanks to its new alien state. And it also just let it slip that it is, in fact, thinking about eating the gods. Damn. Okay, no, this is fine. 15 more minutes at the absolute latest, but it should be sooner, we just need to hold out until then. Which was easier said than done. While Thera had created the largest barrier she'd been able to at the time using all of the free space they had, room was still limited and they were going to be just as trapped as it for that time, creating opportunities that only a shapeshifter could take advantage of as its flesh grew out and thin, violent spikes sprouting with it, creating gaps in the armor, just as it had been designed as the demon took the largest form it was able, its gargantuan flesh filling most of their free space and dripping noxious fluids and forcing him to call out. Thera! Got it! While she was maintaining the barrier around them, that wasn't like it was the only thing she could do, and using the same application of magic she brought forth more sheets of mana, crushing them against Faust's flesh and breaking each violent protrusion that grew through his armor. A temporary measure, but one that had the satisfying effect of removing some of the man's mass. And even if we might be nowhere near that point yet, if we keep chipping away at his exposed areas, then eventually he'll need to shrink down. With the only problem being until then, he'd just made the space far tighter for them all, only needing to be able to roll over to at least take Ben's life and driving forward a new attack of his own to prevent it. He understood why the demon went with spikes. They were violent, and by combining them with its size and the confined space, they could be devastating. All it needed to do was find a way to construct them that Thera couldn't break through, and Ben's odds in particular would become far worse. But there was a weakness to that method too, one which he could exploit. Thera, drop it! He yelled in his thoughts, feeling her release her attacking barrier, and timed it with his own magic, creating pins of metal, enchanted and further strengthened with his mana as he guided them through the air and into the hundreds of stumps the demon hadn't yet been able to regrow, taking advantage of the holes left in the armor for their existence to burrow through the arrangements of bone, chitin, and whatever other attempts it had made to settle in its flesh and muscle below, leaving the demon to scream as they started to work. You! What have you done? Gotten creative, he grinned. Hard to put the sort of enchantments I needed on pins like that, and harder still to put enough power in them, but it looks like it was worth it. How does it feel having your flesh pulled and broken apart? You might have one of the best armors I could make, but I'm still the one who made it, and trust me, I've already imagined all of its weaknesses. 3 enchanted effects spread across the various needles and were all simple in their goal. What had been Faust's flesh froze, burned, and more significant of all, petrified. Not enough to turn him entirely to stone, that would have ruined Ben's plans, but it was a big enough effect to spread beyond merely what each pin directly touched, and when petrification met both the intense heat and frozen flesh, it created the exact result he wanted, causing the extreme temperatures to make the created stone crack and crumble. Instantly the demon was reacting, ripping the pins out of himself and trying to shoot them back, Ben's magic turning them to dust and destroying the enchantments they held before any harm could be done with them, while Faust was left to deal with the outcome. Ben might not have been certain how good the man's temperature resistance was going to be. Faust held enough forms that it was likely 2 of those attacks wouldn't leave lasting damage, but the small points of petrification were different. Faust didn't have the knowledge or skill to undo that bit of petrification, and while he could likely shed that stone skin, until he could work it out, all of it would be trapped there in the armor. Like so much else, thanks to his skill, Faust had access to some earth magic, meaning he'd be able to force that stone flesh out eventually, but the armor Ben had made was designed to cling to him, and that was exactly what it would do, pressing everything within it against the man's flesh and held it in place, not only acting as a distraction but a limit to how the demon would be able to shapeshift until it was all removed, blocking the design Ben had added to accommodate for Faust's power by severely limiting where new horns or limbs or quills could grow, meaning the only thing left is to use this distraction for all it's worth. He could already feel it in the other's mind, a knowledge of what had happened and a need to get rid of it, the demon thinking it wouldn't fall for such a thing again, yet being just distracted enough that Ben could be more brazen with connect, letting him re-estimate how long he was going to need. 10 minutes. While Faust screamed, restructuring the stone filling his suit to try and force it out, the rest of them attacked his giant form. Arms and legs still exposed, Ben, Abel and Thera's full focus shifted to cutting them away, stripping as much mass from him as they could, only to repeatedly watch it regrow, right until it didn't, the stumps simply closing and the armor closing around it while meat and bone piled up in that blocked-off space, though even that gradually shrunk. Abel wasn't hiding the fact that she was taking it for herself. A few of her monstrosities feasted while her true body and the rest she created worked. Not that Ben was going to fault her for that. Even if their attacks seemed to be working, things were still dangerous enough. He wanted all of the strength on their side he could get. Especially since we haven't won yet. 6 minutes left until he expected certain victory. But the fact that he wasn't seeing any signs of it left him worried he was wrong. That there was some other thing he just wasn't seeing, but for the time, all he could do was continue to work. His subtler plans still unnoticed, with the only setback being the demon. Finally getting control of the stone in its suit enough to reshape it in a way that would take advantage of the armor's designs. Rock darts pushing through and shot out that Thera caught with her power before renewing her focus on her barrier, not wanting to let it escape when they'd already come so far. "Oh, I am going to enjoy killing you all," the demon growled out, his size shrinking down from his gargantuan form to something still twice Ben's own, on all fours and looking rippled with muscle as it rushed them, while Abel continued with the strategy they had been under, clinging to a leg but no longer able to get through. Not thanks to any configuration of flesh, but instead an aspect of the demon's original power before becoming Faust. It's light magic. While Ben had felt it buffing itself to an extent, it had been content to ignore the healing aspects of that power at first, but no longer. It had saved its mana by indulging in Faust's nearly endless flesh, but now that it had seen a limit to that, it couldn't continue to be so wasteful, leaving it to use its high level of power instead to rapidly heal its wounds. Ben seeing that clearly with his own attack. A spinning circular blade was made and fired off, the speed and power put into it designed to catch both the front leg and the one behind it, and even appeared to have succeeded. But the perfect blow failed when flesh and bone rejoined, knitting back together like they'd never been apart. While continuing his charge, the monster trying to seem as if he was barreling right at Ben, and would have kept looking like that if he wasn't dealing with a mind reader. At the last second it turned, the true target being Thera, in the hopes that her death would be more of a psychological blow than out of any attempt to free itself. But Thera was already prepared, using her dark magic to cancel out the effects of its light, to sap it of its strength and weaken its healing as it crashed into the spiked barrier she put up, feeling them bite into its bits of exposed flesh, even after the wounds it left began to close when it jumped away, looking back to Ben and finding him far too composed. "I suppose among everything else I'll be taking from you, I've underestimated the value of seeing in one's head," it said, sounding almost disappointed. "You're as bad as the original owner of this body. How a mortal can have so many useful skills and not put them to their true potential is beyond me. What can I say? Someone who thinks only of killing is never going to understand what my skills are worth," he told the other, trying to look both proud and strong. "You want to know the real value of my skills? Something a beast from a species that couldn't build a civilization if they wanted to would never be able to manage. Humor me. Getting paid. And trust me, bastard. After we're done dealing with you and I've potentially helped save this world and the gods of it yet again, I'm making sure I get exactly that." An answer that genuinely caught the other off guard, the demon's nature combined with Faust's memories having expected plenty but not that, with even the thoughts in Thera's head projecting a small level of exasperation at the notion that that was where his mind was at, which he ignored, instead focusing everything that he was on the demon before him while that demon did the same. "You are, perhaps, the strangest being in my memories." "Yeah? Well, most of them aren't yours, and that's a bit unfair to someone else here. Don't you think, Abel?" "What are you talking about? I'm fitting in great." The mass of flesh screamed back as it wrapped around Faust's body, trying to crush down. "And is there anyone else around other than you and Thera?" "Not that I can see." "All right. Then someone better close their eyes for what's coming next." Picking up exactly what she was saying, Thera averted her gaze, trusting Ben to tell her if something needed to be done, while Abel's form shifted, straining against reality itself as her outer ancestry warped her shape, leaving her stronger and more lethal for going through it and bringing a devastating effect. Instantly Faust screamed, his exposed flesh and bones being eaten away at by Abel's unnatural nature in a way he couldn't simply heal and could only be replaced with more that he had hidden away, leaving the man to thrash and flail, all to try and free himself, and created a new, greater distraction for Ben to work with surgical precision, cutting another minute off of his time before their foe found a solution. The demon's only weakness was its exposed flesh, but that was mostly solvable as his form changed once more. It would always have a small hole in it. The armor's design demanded as much, but everything beyond that was meant for Faust's convenience and easily ignored when his limbs pulled back into themselves, creating nothing but a large ball for Abel to encase. If you stumble upon this narrative on Amazon, be aware that it has been stolen from Royal Road. Please report it. Not that he'd given up. Even as her flesh covered him in his entirety, the demon below her pulsed, new spikes jutting out from all over, retracting before her fluids could eat away at them entirely and repeating from there, again and again and again, even as Abel mocked them. Is this all you got left? I'll give you put up more of a fight than the perv normally would, but dash. Abel, get off him. In both of their heads, Ben had seen what the demon had been trying, but though it was pointless, the accuracy of that assumption proven wrong too late. She hadn't noticed at first, too deep in the battle to pay attention to her own state, but throughout her, he could feel a growing dizziness and a small ache, both building up more by the second though and revealing something he'd thought they'd managed to avoid. Abel was poisoned. Faust held the toxins of every creature he killed, and it seemed in his desperation had managed to find a configuration that would hurt even a third tier like her, leaving Ben to groan. He must have poked her a few places that her armor wasn't covering her, but that means I can no longer trust my own resistance either. Damn it, it has to be just a little longer. It has to be. Despite his fears though, Abel didn't let go, hanging on with all she had and crushing down, trying to keep him trapped for Ben to work for as long as she could before being thrown to the side and staying there, her outer ancestry disappearing without the conscious will to keep it up. Damn. Thera, help Abel. But dash. I'll be fine. I just need a little longer, and if it doesn't work, damn. He wasn't yet seeing the disturbance in the other's mind that he wanted to, sinking his hope all the lower, with it only getting worse from there. The demon may have wanted him, that was true, but it wanted all of them in the end. He just looked like the best target among them. With Abel down though, that was no longer true. Not sparing him a glance, it rushed at her, speeds far beyond what Ben could muster even with his magic, with Thera being the one to save her. Grabbing the girl with the earth below and trusting her physical strength to protect her from the rate Thera moved her at, bringing them together and allowed the healing to begin while Ben used his own power, the various senses he had letting him hone in on and materialize within Faust's mouth, making the other choke on the iron pins now fill it while Ben just laughed. You know, I can see why you'd mention wanting my materialization before, he mocked. A shame that even if you get it, you'll be too dumb to use it. You think a power like that comes easy through skill alone? You actually need a brain. Well, I suppose we'll have to see, he said, shifting to the form Faust wore when Ben had taken a commission from the third tier for what psychological effect that would hold and not bothering to hide it in his thoughts. Then I suppose I'll have to learn. Perhaps the rest of my kin would struggle, but I'd like to think I have a certain level of focus. PFFF. All of you demons are focused? Ben scoffed, preparing as the other walked over. Even if the comment left a sudden realization, this bastard's only been thinking about what he wants. This consumed him. Oh my God. Could this literally still be going on just because he hasn't noticed something is wrong? Is the issue that there's just enough left of him to keep up the fight? Hell, then is fighting him the only reason he's still here at all? Well, before you kill me, I've got one last question if you'll indulge. No, I don't think I will. Quills poisoned with the same one that flooded Abel flew at him, forcing Ben to knock them away with his magic while painting a grin on his face. Come on, treat me here. After all I want to ask is why are we even fighting? I think you're well aware of that. What, to kill me and make me yours? Sure, maybe, but tell me now, how did this fight start? What are you blathering about? He trailed off, trying to remember while the silence was filled by Ben, using the distraction to speed up his work. How did we find you in the first place? Why did we find you? You were looking for Faust. Aren't you Faust? He asked, seeing it work. The mind of the demon needing only a little push away from the focus of the fight to start to crumble as its thoughts unraveled. No, what are you doing to me? You're what? A demon? Are you? We spoke about it early on in the fight, but do you even remember being one? Ben asked, watching as the other clutched at their head as they fell to their knees, his victory finally certain as he walked over. You were just a collection of memories, and now you're not even that. Too wrapped in panic, an identity crisis caused by everything it was being stripped away and leaving only Faust behind, Ben went into its head like he'd been doing throughout the fight and, with his mind break, destroyed even the memories of that conversation, finally killing all that existed of the demon in its totality and leaving only Faust left. Mind break level increased. Soul affinity level increased. Deep material sense level increased. Defense inclination level increased. Multiversal inclination level increased. Max level of the high marksman job achieved. Wah Ben, Faust said over the notifications, sounding dazed and confused. What happened? Why are you where am I? I was just in a swamp before I blacked out and dash. Faust? Ben said kindly, seeing nothing in the other's mind to make him worry. I'm sorry, but that's going to have to be a discussion I'll leave for Peak and your goddess. For now, just do me a favor and change to something meek-looking while we check on Abel. All right. He neither knew nor understood the cause of the destruction he could see all around him, but that didn't matter. The air around Ben gave way to the seriousness of the request, and without the information it seemed like he needed, he did as he was told, changing to something less conspicuous to wait until the time was right for the reveal. While Ben put his mind to work trying to figure out the best way he could possibly explain what had happened. Hand on a door, Ben paused, speaking quietly to the two with him. Could you both wait for just a little? I'd like a private word with him. They each nodded, stepping off to the side as Ben let himself through, finding a barren room where Faust had been in the day since he'd been saved, sitting up in bed and staring out his window with a look of despair across his face. After he'd been freed from the mind of the demon bound to him, Ben having succeeded in destroying every bit of memory from it and every other demon the man absorbed, Thera had saved Abel from the poison filling her body and ultimately left Ben the task of telling the shifter the truth, leaving nothing out and destroying the other for that fact. For whatever anyone else in the world might have thought of him, Faust had always tried to do his best for the planet, but then more than ever he knew he had failed, with the consequences of it lingering even if the demonic mind behind it was gone. Faust, Ben said, pulling up a chair to the other side to join him without getting so much as a glance. How are you doing? A dumb question. How could I be doing? A look in his mind revealed easily the depths of his despair, the shifter sick to his stomach with the simple thought of food repulsive to him. Even if he hadn't been in control, his body had been used to kill and eat the people he'd worked so hard to protect, and that knowledge struck him to his core, with Ben having nothing he could do to comfort him. Faust dash. I can't even try to protect this world anymore. Ben, he said, staring off in the distance. It hasn't been spelled out for me yet, but you're clever. You know it to be true. It was an undeniable fact. The shifter may not have been getting any blame for what happened. It had been an unpredictable side effect of his skill, and the one who'd truly been responsible for all of those lost lives had been destroyed. But it left one inescapable reality in there and the gods' minds. If it happened once, it could happen again. It was impossible to say for sure if Faust had been taken over purely for killing a contender, or if all of the thousands of demons he'd killed before then had made him more vulnerable to it like Ben suspected, but a repeat wasn't a risk they could take. If he ended up conquered again, then there was no guarantee he'd be stopped a second time, and even if the first-tier demons might have been harmless to him, the second-tier ones presented a clear and present danger. Even if it might have been safe to help do away with the dredges, when the next wave came, bringing awakened demons with it, he'd have no choice but to be sidelined. A fact that might as well have been a death sentence for the man. He'd constantly pushed through what trauma the war was leaving on him because he had the power and he believed it was right, but now all he'd worked for was for naught. The skill that lifted him above any other mortal had become more of a poison than a gift and left a feeling of uselessness to eat at him as much as any of the regret and shame he felt for what transpired when he'd lost control of his body and soul. And how am I even supposed to face them? Faust went on with a hollow laugh. These people I'm meant to protect. I don't even know how many I killed. Dare I ask you, mind reader, how many deaths are on my hands? How many souls aren't even allowed to rest because they've been bound to my own? None of their deaths are on your hands, Faust. You couldn't have known that was possible. No one could have. You don't have the right to say that. My body, my skill, everything I'd spent my life working for has been used to kill innocent people, and you think I shouldn't bear any blame? How could I be so brazen? No. Thank you for coming to see me, Ben, but please leave. Ben didn't move and the other made no attempt to make him, more than happy to ignore him to drown in his misery, even while being given no choice but to listen. Faust, are you aware of how the first wave ended early? Something about the murder of spirits by a conspiracy of powerful people? Is that what you're going for then? Pointing out that terrible things happen and are done during wars because I'm sorry, it's not a convincing argument. No, what I'm doing is empathizing. A conspiracy to murder a bunch of spirits for power? Maybe they would have been responsible for exactly that if things had gone as the perpetrators intended. But that's not what happened. Oh, by the time things went wrong, I'm sure more than a few had been killed by what was happening to them, but the real murderer? The one with hundreds of their deaths on his hands is me. What? This tale has been pilfered from Royal Road. If found on Amazon, kindly file a report. A machine was built, powered by the living mana that was hundreds of spirits to suppress a gate, and I, along with my teacher, was sent to help maintain it, Ben explained, his hands clenching and emotion coming to his voice despite himself as he spoke. And it was destroyed. Another demon contender, apparently sent through to act as, an observer I guess, saw what was happening and destroyed it before anyone could stop it, and as chaos came to what had probably been one of the most peaceful battlefields on the planet, I did what I could to help. I found the power source, unscathed despite the attack on it, and I was able to use that power for myself. The things I did with it, wasteful isn't a good enough word to describe how I'd spent it. Not seeing the cost, and I can make a million excuses for myself. Having access to that level of power deeply affected my mind at the time, and I had no clue that spirits were the power source. But at the end of the day, those are just things that other people told me to try and ease my guilt. The simple fact is, if I hadn't acted, even if the wave wouldn't have ended like that, they wouldn't be dead. So how have you been living with that? I've told you before, I don't have any healthy coping mechanisms, Ben told the other, being the one to wear an empty smile now. I just don't think about it, at least to the best I can. I work or I spend time with people or I fiddle with a million different problems to avoid dealing with that and so much else. I'm not here to give you any healthy advice, Faust. I'm here to tell you this. Whatever guilt you feel, if you can't forgive yourself, then fine. No one can make you, but you need to figure out a way of dealing with it. How could I possibly? I hear what you're saying, Ben, but I've lost my purpose. Then I'll give you another one. He got up as he said it, opening the door to bring the other two in, with Abel there waiting and one more Ben had only met that day, speaking up to the stranger as they entered. Invite him. They nodded at the request and fulfilled their role there, Faust giving him a confused look as a new notification went through his head, inviting him into that adventurer's party. Surely I'm not worth wasting your time on like this. You're a third tier, it's not a waste, Ben told him. And I have more than enough jobs to keep this from being a concern for me. You don't have a purpose anymore because you can't defend the world? Fine then, heal it. Heal? Wait, you can't mean dash. It doesn't matter how it happened, Faust. Not just the life magic merged into your shifting. You're now a contender for light magic in a world desperate for more powerful healers in general, and that power is yours to use. You can't kill any more demons? So what? Save the people who can. You're seriously asking me to become a light mage? Become whatever you want. I'm just telling you what I think the best option you have is. You aren't dead yet, and there's still plenty of good you can do in the world, but if not that, then find anything. If it could give your life enough purpose to let you ignore the things that happen, then it doesn't matter what you choose in the end. You just need to pick something. A contender for light magic, he muttered to himself, giving the option a bit more thought while accepting the adventurer's party request and, seeing that, allowed Ben to pick a job of his own, with no new options for himself, making it simple when the only thing he needed to do from there was help Faust finish his Fallen Actualizer. As soon as he took it, the job was done, the things he was doing both to Quax's soul as well as in his realm being more than enough to complete even the advanced variant the third tier had taken, even if the quick result left Abel giving him a pointed look. Having gotten the benefits of being part of the party yet remembering clearly how many more days her own had taken, leaving Ben to thank and dismiss the adventurer before pulling 2 new necklaces from his rings to hand over. Personal job crystals, he told them both. Faust, with the skills you have, not only any light magic jobs, you'd be able to get through plenty of first-tier options easily too. And Abel, I'm honestly not sure how long any of your future jobs are going to take considering how many only seem to exist for you. It's even possible another is going to be a third tier, but either way, if they end up being quick to work through, it's handy to have a crystal on hand. Just think of it as a gift from a friend. Sweet, thanks, she beamed, the present making her forget the serious atmosphere that had been filling the place and left Faust giving him a look. And why exactly is she here? Huh? To look after your sorry ass. Duh. Abel answered for herself like it was the most obvious thing in the world, only increasing Faust's confusion. Why? You looked after me plenty until I was used to this place, didn't you? She shrugged, having a far more positive evaluation of their brief time together than the shifter had expected. His own perceived failings on that front making the surprise at the statement clear on his face. Even if you're a big old pervert and a pain in the ass, you're a pal. I can at least try to help you get back on your feet for a bit when I'm not off dealing with other crap. Oh, what? You too good for my company or something? No, he told her, his voice catching after the first word. No. I think, if you'd be willing to stay with me for just a bit, I'd appreciate it. Leaving the 2 of them from there, Ben left the Church of Faust's Goddess where the man was being cared for to make his way back to that city's gate. Feeling the comforting expression he tried to wear for his fellow third-tier slip away as he did. 1 third-tier down, and one of the combat-oriented ones at that. While some might have been inclined to see it as akin to a change back to the status quo of the world before Ben's recent awakening to that level, he knew that was far from the truth. He himself was not meaningfully a fighter. The powers he'd gained would pose no replacement for the shifter's role, and no matter what good would come of the other acting as a healer from there on out, Ben doubted it would be enough to replace what Faust would have been able to accomplish in the third wave, leaving the entire planet worse for what had happened. It's fine though, there's months left before the next wave for Yuzu or Elvit to awaken another third tier or 2, and with how much Thera is being worked, it's not an impossible dream that she'd awaken her life magic as well, and as for me, well, I'll just keep going. The odds of everything he was trying to reassure himself with felt too low and left him pinching his brow by the end as he went. Even if more were awakened, any new third tier wouldn't have the decades of experience behind them that Faust did. They'd be too fresh in their skills. It's just not enough, he muttered to himself. Every benefit they found felt like it would end up being balanced by a different loss. For every strength they'd gained, the fact that there were other demon contenders on the world was a big strike against whatever hope he could let himself feel. Myriad may have told him that a couple of other ones had been killed by that point, but the 3 he himself had met had all been nightmares, and with no knowledge of how many might have still been hiding away on the planet, it could potentially only get worse. Myriad mentioned before about entire villages going missing too, and I doubt that had anything to do with the one Faust was taken over by. I'll have to ask if that one was ever found or if it was more than one, or Ben. Oh hey Myriad, perfect timing. You told me before that there was a suspected demon contender clearing out villages without leaving a trace. Were they ever found? No, but that's not what I'm looking for you for. Do me a favor and come up here for a bit. Yeah, can do, he said as he directed a part of himself to that higher realm, finding 2 others there that weren't among the expected crew, even if he still tried to politely greet them. Fixed and Velmet, what do I owe the pleasure? I've come to thank you for your work in this matter, Ben, the stone god told him. For all that's going to come of this, well, how you managed to wrap it up was a better outcome than many here could have hoped for. You mean the part where I 100% managed to save the world from disaster and likely saved plenty of you lot too, given that killing him would have meant some godhood where he then could have tried eating all of you up here? You guys were all watching, right? Probably heard what he said about eating the world and its gods. Yes, your work in the matter is deeply appreciated, by some more than others. Fixed glanced at Velmet as he said it, the goddess already bowing her head. Thank you for saving Faust and the risks you'd had to take to do it rather than just sealing his soul away. I won't forget this. MMH. A guy willing to work so hard for the world deserves to be saved. There was no other option. I agree, but I'm aware plenty of others wouldn't have seen the same, she told him, lifting her head and focusing back on his eyes. He's a believer I cherish. All I want for him is to get the chance to rest, and that's only possible thanks to you. I'm not the sort of ingrate who won't reward someone for their work. Acquired Velmet's blessing. Since Abel and your lover both helped as well, they've both been rewarded too, the goddess went on. Consider this my sincerity, but with that done, I'll be on my way. Until the next time, be well. She vanished before he could respond. The thoughts in her head telling him she wanted to go back to watching over Faust and he wasn't going to try to stop her, instead focusing on the two still in the realm. Damn, that was super nice of her. Who'd have thunk? A god trying to properly reward me for my hard work, and she even knew the right way of going about it too. And all because I saved one of her believers, nothing else. Wow, I sure do wish I'd done something worth being rewarded by the other gods. Maybe having saved the world for a second time would do it, but oh, who am I kidding? What's the odds of any one guy saving the world twice? Very subtle, Myriad muttered, even if both gods had expected as much. I'm not going to deny your work should be rewarded, Ben, Fix sighed. And I'm even willing to discuss it, if you'd at least hear me out. I'm all ears. If you're willing to take something small for now as a reward from us for what you've accomplished, when the war ends, if things go in our favor and whatever invaders are left on the planet are in a manageable state that isn't going to threaten to destabilize the world, then when that time comes, I will argue on your behalf for something you've mentioned wanting before. I will do my best to get you the blessings of the world's gods. If you spot this story on Amazon, know that it has been stolen. Report the violation. Their full blessings? Ben asked, his eyes lighting up, even if Fixed tried to lower his expectations. That's the argument I'll make, but given how I'm sure others will fight it in the end, it's a lot more likely that it will be knocked down to what anyone would put into a tower blessing. Still, there's many of us on this planet. What you'd get would easily be worth 10 tower blessings, and I will do my best to rally the others to get you more than that. MMH, admittedly not actually bad, even if putting it off till after things get better is currently useless to me. Tell you what, I'll take that deal, but given the fact I might be dead even if we win, I want that blessing passed on to my next of kin in the event I'm not around to take it. Either split it evenly between Thera and Delaire, give it to one of them entirely if the other dies too, and if they've both died then split the blessing evenly between whatever remaining humans are on the planet. And if they're all dead too, then Myriad can choose who in my life that's still alive can benefit from it. Deal. That's acceptable, and given if you die and join me up here in arguing for it, I'm sure you'll be able to make quite the compelling case. Fixed told him, wearing a thin smile at the thought of how the others would react to the new god of sacrilege arguing for proper payment with them, ignorant to Ben's worries that his death might not end with his godhood for what he planned to do. And then what reward would you like for the time being? In a few days I'm modifying the souls of everyone on the planet who wants me to, and that still depends on what attributes I have for myself, so at least try to raise my mana regen by a couple hundred more points. You were all cheap enough the last time because, not to put too fine of a point on it, I'm literally about to change the world in a significant way. Very well. I will talk to the others and see about getting you properly compensated soon. Cool. And as for one more minor thing, Myriad, would you say this guy's cool? I'm sorry, Fixed asked, not understanding the question while the cube focused in on Ben. Why, what are you thinking? I'm considering giving him a small heads up about something. Well, he's not going to try to kill you, and from all I've seen, he tries to be a reasonable man, but I believe you'd have a better idea than me. True. He'd asked for his god's opinion, but he was already discreetly in the stone god's head. looking around for anything to worry about but getting nothing. While a bit more rigid than the ones he normally gave his time, Fixed wasn't secretly plotting behind his back, and any complaints about him the god had seemed directed to the fact that through no fault of his own, he'd managed to become Ben's mediator of sorts when it came to dealing with the gods. Okay, so there's one more thing I'd like you personally to do for me and to hear me out on. Something about that little exchange you had makes me think I probably don't want to. Okay, and so you'd probably be right, but my request is about doing your best to smooth things over for the next time any gods of this world decide they need to kill me, and if I'm being honest, that's going to probably be happening sooner than later. The statement instantly made the god's face fall, looking like he was deciding if he should leave then and there before he could hear anything he didn't want to, before ultimately deciding that if he was going to have to deal with it anyway, it would be better to get any warning he could. What is it then? Okay. So part of it has to do with my evil god of sacrilege dash, which is still causing headaches up here, being at its second level. A look of disbelief on his face. Fixed turned to Myriad, the cube nodding while they both gave off the same feelings of despair for how much of a headache that inevitable reveal would be. Should I even ask how that's possible? Okay, so the how of it is the sort of thing I think we'll all be happier with the exact details not getting out, even if eventually some of the other gods are going to be able to start making guesses. All right, fine, Fixed told him, pinching the bridge of his nose. So, you expect the reveal to come out tomorrow then, when you're going to attempt to finish the rest of the third tier's jobs? I'm sure your teacher has some warning about looking at your soul, but Verbum can be curious despite his fearful nature. You know, I'd considered giving Fox some sort of warning by popping into his head before he could see me the next time he came home, but he hasn't actually been back in Stonewall in weeks, so he doesn't even know I'm a third tier yet unless Sonia mentioned it when she's gone off to see him dash. But Nair's already mentioned to suppress his soul sight if he goes back, as well as during tomorrow, Myriad cut in. We don't exactly want this coming out so soon either. Okay, cool. Then it's just Verbum and I should be able to deal with him unless I get a bit unlucky. All right. And dare I ask the other part? Secret, but you can consider it to be on a similar scale. Fixed looked at Myriad, wanting more now that he'd heard such a ridiculous thing but got to see instead the cube's despair deepening. What do you mean a secret on a similar scale, and why haven't I heard about it yet? Because I'm not sure it'll work out, so I'm just giving this warning to try and prepare him. And you, I guess, but it will be fine. No part of that sounds fine, Ben. Listen, if it works, I'll tell you, and if it doesn't, well, I'll try and find another way to make it work. It will be fine, though. Not to put too fine of a point on it, but I've saved the world twice now. I've clearly got its best interests at heart. Its best interests or yours? Considering I live here, I'm sure you won't be surprised to know that the two coincide. Enough of that now. Fixed, that's a bit of warning to you, free of charge, so if you want to try and do any preemptive smoothing over, that would be great. It doesn't sound like I have a choice but to do so if I want a chance at peace in the next few months. Can you at least give me a time frame of when this might come to a head? Well, I'm going to try and keep as many eyes up here from seeing it as possible for as long as possible, but odds feel pretty good that everything will get out within the week. Then it seems I must be off. I suppose I'll thank you for the bit of warning, but for now dash. Don't forget my attributes either, please. I'll be off. Check your card in the morning to see however much you end up with. Thanks, Fixed. The other didn't hear, having already left the realm in his despair at everything he'd just been told, leaving only the two of them remaining. Are you sure that was a good idea, Ben? At least I don't think it was a bad idea. Part of the issues I have is dealing with reactions when the things I do are sprung on anyone up here. I'm hoping a somewhat neutral party working to smooth things over beforehand might make reactions a bit more manageable. And whatever the other insane thing you're going to do is, something you're going to need to wait and see. Despite the conversation with the gods going about as well as it could have, Ben still felt worn out as he made it home, left to wonder just what the fallout would be. Warning Fixed had been a whim, something to let him see if it would ease some of the expected angry results, but he was already sure that the next time he enraged the gods wouldn't be the last, leaving a certain level of stress with it. Time felt so short, he didn't want to waste it having to defend all of the things he would do nor argue for the sake of his existence. He just didn't want anyone getting in his way. Which is going to happen. He already knew. Even if I don't level my sacrilege anymore, once word eventually gets out, someone's gonna raise a stink and maybe even try to get in the way of what I can accomplish in the time I have left. Ugh, there's just too much. It had been 9 days since his last level to that particular skill. Considering it had gone up only a week before that, he knew that hoping for another so soon was unreasonable, but it just felt so unbelievably slow. Each day he was spending tens of thousands of years using Quax's soul to try and improve, breaking it down and rebuilding it any time the mental damage became too great, but he still wasn't getting the sort of progress he wanted. And on a lot of fronts too. He thought with a sigh. I know I'm being unreasonable trying to level a third-tier skill as fast as I can, but I'm never going to get used to how long this is taking considering how I'm training it. No wonder nobody else ever managed to get more than a single level to 1. He tried to keep it from touching his face as he went inside though, finding Thera reading in the living room with Mora asleep against her arm, instantly lightening his heart. "How'd that go?" she asked him as he went over, gently kissing her for what comfort it could bring before he scooped Mora up to tuck into bed. "About as well as I could have hoped. Even if it wasn't much, I think I managed to talk him into working as a healer from here on out, which is better than leaving him to wallow in despair, and Abel's gonna stay with him for a while till he gets back on his feet, which will probably be fine." No, she wanted to, it will be fine, even if they'll probably end up bickering. "And is any of that related to a notification I got not too long ago?" "Ah, Velmet's blessing?" Yeah, she was grateful we managed to save Faust instead of taking any potentially easier options. Love a god that knows how to properly show their gratitude. She goes in my good books. And are you okay?" she asked, seeing right through him as they put Mora to bed and retired to their own room. "You seem stressed." "I think being stressed is currently a pretty normal response to things right now." He smiled, trying to lighten up amidst thoughts of all of his worries and goals swarming his head. "But I'm fine. Just thinking about how much it feels like there still is to do in the next few months and how it's all going to go." "Ha, what? Suddenly you don't like working yourself to death?" she tried to joke, making his smile slightly more earnest as he took her hand before she could start to change, to spin her and pull her into a dance in the comfort of their room. "Working myself to death is only fun when it's on my terms. When the world's falling down around me and forcing me into it, not so much. Little moments like this, though, much, much better. If you stumble upon this tale on Amazon, it's taken without the author's consent. Report it." "This is nice," she muttered, resting her head against his chest. "Could use some music to go with the dance, though." Coming up, a small bit of his power went to materializing a music box, playing as it went, and was rewarded with a sparkling smile. "And showing you're pretty talented when it comes to romance, too. Maybe you could get a title for that one day instead of the insane ones you usually do." "Ha! Maybe Analia could give me one sometime. Beloved son-in-law of the love goddess has a good ring to it, right? It's a little wordy. Maybe something along the lines of romantic little guy. Then, you don't even seem little by the standards of your race, unless the gods managed to pick the shortest options they could find for some reason. Okay, I'm tall enough for my species, but being a little guy is more of a state of mind than anything else. It's because I'm so sweet and innocent. Just the first one. I think the second one's in there too. MMH. Remind me again what happened the last time we went to Anetha's church?" His priests ended up mysteriously beaten up, and through no fault of anyone's. His church blew up. I think it just did that, though, you know how churches are. "And the god-killing knife you made in Craftsman's Tower?" "God-torturing knife," he clarified. "And I haven't even had the chance to use that yet. That would be like holding an unused doomsday weapon against me." "Oh Lord, you haven't been making any doomsday weapons, have you?" "Not yet," he said innocently before breaking down, letting a grin stretch across his face while Thera laughed back, breaking off to turn off the music box before pulling him to bed. "All right, enough being a crazy person. I can't help but notice that we're alone and awake, and seeing as how a certain somebody now has a body that needs sleep, we can be guaranteed a bit of privacy again. I at least could use an hour of your time before getting any rest myself if you're in the mood." "Absolutely." Thera resting beside him, her arm and tail both clinging to him in a way he couldn't have escaped if he wanted to. Ben quietly worked on his magic in the early hours of the morning, coming to a cautionary conclusion after what had been days of testing by that point. He didn't need to sleep anymore. While he'd ended up physically tired more than once since awakening his skill, he'd never been mentally. What rest he'd gotten since gaining Eldritch Mind, something he'd forced himself into, but in the days since he'd been given his quest to find Faust, he hadn't slept once and felt no change for it. A discovery that had been a coincidence more than anything. Even if he didn't find himself tired too often, he knew the benefits of getting sleep, but after skipping that the night before he'd gone off and getting none in the days of their search, he had developed a suspicion that had led him to continue putting it off in the days since, reaching a point that seemed almost certain. He'd been freed from that mortal constraint. For good or ill. He knew he could force himself to if he so desired, and it wasn't like he was going to start staying at the shop for days on end, but there was no denying that while Thera was resting peacefully beside him, he was no longer going to be doing the same. He no longer needed to in order to visit his god, and that time could instead be used for other things, his enchanting and other magics all hard at work thanks to the massive mana and regeneration pools he'd grown, and his actualization on the mortal plane got its practice too. Even deep connection, the skill that he truly wanted to push beyond its limits, was seeing what work it could get as he stretched his soul beyond the confines of the walls that held him, connecting to whatever he could for the practice he could get. No, it was too useful as far as growth went, so he knew he would be taking advantage of it, but he couldn't deny the conflicted feelings in his chest that came with the knowledge that, as of that day, he'd officially be giving up sleep. I did it! Delaire cheered as the notification rang out in her thoughts, telling them both that she'd gained her 4th level of enchanting and officially reached the point in both it and her crafting that Ben had hoped to get her to by the start of the next wave, with months still to go. Excellent work, kiddo! Ben laughed as he reached out to ruffle her hair. I'm proud of you. In that case, why don't we change things up a bit here now that you've got that done? After all, you've got 2 new magics to go with it too. Improving their levels will improve the power you get when enchanting with them. Sounds great, she said, her eyes gleaming in excitement. What are you thinking? Depends. How hard did you want to work? Till I can beat all of your other students into the dirt. Ha, a little extreme there, but you got it. In that case, we'll see what levels we can squeeze out of you. It's going to be a little uncomfortable, so just tell me when you want to stop and we will. Okay? Okay. Perfect. He got her to take a seat at a desk, materializing a variety of stones and metals for her to work on, and watched her look at each one while he adjusted her circlet, adding another mind to the 3 he already had it set up for and significantly increasing the speeds she'd perceive the world too as he instructed her by speaking directly into her head. I'll give you different ways I want you shaping each substance as you go, and I'll let you know what magic you'll be using each time, but you'll be balancing the both of them. It's not more than I think you can handle, but with your perception of time changed, you'll find your mana being spent faster than you expect to, but I'll be making sure to keep your pool full, so feel free to go wild. This is about you improving your skill. Don't worry about anything else. The only issue is that it's going to feel uncomfortable, so if it gets to be too much, just let me know and we'll take a break. Okay? Okay! She tried to tell him so fast that the word came out all at once, threatening to make him laugh as she dealt with the degree her thoughts were being sped as she started using her newer magics while Ben carefully poured the power she spent back into her, creating a small discomfort of having her regeneration rates exceeded, but not the sort one would get for overfilling a soul, making sure he kept well below that point for his own experience with the pain such a thing could cause, all while he let himself watch her work, seeing as she excelled. Like any person he'd pass in the streets, his student had benefited from his awakenings for the knowledge he could give, incorporating the feeling of how skills should be used within the depth of her psyche and witnessing as she put it all into practice, all while he subtly gave her more. While harmless, he'd seen in Faust that a big enough volume could leave one with a headache, though that particular example was after transmitting the information he held on hundreds of skills, but he still wanted to treat doing the same to Delaire with care as he subtly gave her more, slipping all he knew about material science into her head to be used as if it had always been there and drastically changing the nature of the lessons he'd give for it. Until then, he'd pull her into his head to teach her theory while getting her body to practice in the real world, but that was clearly no longer necessary. He could teach her things in a way that would leave her feeling like she'd already learned it long ago, both faster and more efficiently than any other way of helping her grow in those fronts. Doing anything else was basically pointless. And since she's benefiting from the effects of my knowledge skill, there really shouldn't be a need to reinforce it, but I'll still give her a more traditional lesson once or twice a week, just to be on the safe side and to properly confirm that she's both digested the information properly and that it really does stick. And then from there, all there would be left was getting her to grow as much under his tutelage as possible in the time they had left, and since the 4th level mark was already met, he was placing the new goalpost at the 6th level for both her crafting and enchanting, and when it came to her other magics, he'd just see what they could get. He didn't view her plant magic as his concern, even if he had given her some help with it, and it was already at the 4th level anyway. But as for the last two, the 0th level they were currently at would doubtless be a few levels higher by then, even if it brought another thought to his head. Unauthorized usage. This tale is on Amazon without the author's consent. Report any sightings. She now has 3 non-affinitied magics. One more, and then one day she could become a proper non-affinitied mage instead if she awakens them. A result that could be valuable enough that it clearly needed to be discussed to give the girl some proper consideration, leaving him to reach out to gently pull the circlet from her head as he took a seat across from her, bringing her back to real time. Sorry, kiddo. Looks like you need to take a small break because there's something I want to talk to you about. All right, what's up? I know you enjoy enchanting and you're doing real well at it. You're already making for an excellent enchanter, he told her, watching as she lit up under the compliment. But, from the bit of practice you have with the two so far, how would you say you're enjoying your 2 new magics, Material User and Destruction? They're fun. It's neat having options to use besides plant, and it gives me some variety for my enchanting too. I'm glad I got to learn them. I'm glad to hear that. Then in that case, let's talk about the future a bit. You've said before that you want to grow as much as you can, and I told you I'd help you. So right now we're going to discuss how you'd want to grow. Of the non-affinitied magics you've got, I'm comfortable calling your enchanting your main one, and while this would still be a ways off for you, as you improve with it you have 2 options I want you to consider. You can either try to awaken the magic as is, or you can gain one more branch of that magic type to aim instead to become a non-affinitied mage. All that matters is which option you'd prefer. He could sense her rising excitement as she considered it, even if she tried to stamp the feeling down a bit as she thought the question over, asking one of her own in return. Do you think I should try for that? Ha! This is something you need to figure out for yourself, kiddo. I can't give you any answers. I will tell you there's positives and negatives at both ends of the spectrum though. If you want to work as an enchanter, then having non-affinitied magic will give you the entire magic type to enchant with, which is basically a world of options to have at your fingertips. But if your passion is enchanting and not the totality of that magic, then it will be a lot easier for you to level it further as an awakened enchanting alone, since trying to level that general magic means practicing and studying that magic as a whole. Something I can help you do as well if that's what you want, but would still slow you down compared to how far you could go solely as an enchanter, and if you don't enjoy many of those other magics then you probably won't get too far with it even with all of the help I can give you. Of course, at the same time, it's not like you need to go far. If you become a proper non-affinitied mage, then there's not going to be much you wouldn't be able to do even if you never get another level to it, and that alone would be enough to make you a very, very rich enchanter. In the end, it's all going to come down to how you feel and what you want to get out of your skills, but this isn't something you need to decide immediately. It's just something I want you to think on, and if you let me know in the future, then we can work towards whatever specific goal you end up with. All right? He could see that the conversation had put her deep in thought. The young girl torn between imagining how impressive it would be to reach the level of a non-affinitied mage, while at the same time questioning if that really was what she wanted compared to growing one of the skills she was focusing on as far as it would go, coming to an unexpected conclusion. Can't I just do both? Ha! He let out as he thought it over, looking at what he knew of the magic and considering the question the best he could based on the information he held. I mean, maybe? I'm not aware of anyone else doing something like that, but I suppose there's technically no reason you couldn't work to awaken your enchanting and whatever other magics you care about before acquiring ones you care less about to work on raising to the level of a non-affinitied mage. Although doing that would be a lot harder for little benefit. Or would it? Okay, in theory, if you awakened a few magics in their individual forms and then managed to awaken to a complete non-affinitied magic after then, that might actually give a pretty significant boost to the control and power you could demonstrate with your original magics, but you'd still have to split your efforts between both to get to that point. It would definitely be harder than doing one or the other. And cooler, she told him. the difficulty ignored in favor of imagining how impressive it would be. That's the option. I want to do that. Ha, all right. If you're sure, then that can be something we can work towards, he told her. But in that case, you now instead need to decide if you're going to just try to awaken your enchanting before that, or if you're going to try to awaken either or both of your other two magics too. And from there, decide what four would be interesting enough to try to raise to the second tier together after, because if that's what you want to do, you need to have interest. And then if none of that scares you off, we can work out a study plan. Sounds good. Sounds great. Well, ambition is a good thing to have at least, he told himself as he mentally ticked up what he'd need her to get to for all of her magics before the third wave arrived, lest she spend the rest of her life trying to turn those goals into a reality. Levels coming to Delaire for both material user as well as destruction by the time the day ended. While Thera and Mora walked her home, Ben instead turned to one of his many gates, a long-awaited conclusion finally within his reach. Everything's set up for me? Yes, they're ready and waiting. Any other folks around who might catch a look at my soul? No, just Verbum and your teacher, as expected. Nair already told Falk to suppress his soul sight, which just leaves the first. You think you'll be able to get through this without him eyeing the changes in you? Soft maybe, I'll be getting you to be on lookout for me. This really is too soon for the gods to catch how I've changed. I need another couple of days at least. So incredibly worrying. Just tell me why. Gonna make one last attempt to score some extra benefits when I get to soul modifying soon, which I'm sure plenty of jerks might try to get in the way of despite how good it would be for the planet. I don't want the extra scrutiny before that. Fine, whatever, get going then. They'll all be on the dock. Got it. With nothing else to do, he started making his way through the Magic Towers Guild and down the streets, heading to the coast where a crowd was already surely gathered. Yet not quite in the area everyone else was meeting. He could see them there, all slightly off in the distance as he made his way to the water's edge, but simply joining them all there would create too much leeway for Verbum to spot him beyond his range to do anything about it, forcing him to get creative as he slipped his shoes and a few of his other goods into his rings before diving into the ocean's depths, swimming beneath the water's surface from there and getting to see the crowd down below. With the aquatic half of the planet also getting to enjoy his services, it seemed what he was going to do had drawn plenty in on that front as well. All of them gathered around the dock in preparation, with the parties he would be joining among them looking forward to receiving the benefits he could give. The focus of the aquatic races firmly on the surface above and barely acknowledging as he swam through them, boosting his speed with his magic and creating new pockets of air for himself to breathe as he went until he was finally close enough to connect to Verbum and, having received no warnings from Myriad to dissuade him, forced the man to fall asleep in a way that would akin to any of his fainting fits. At the same time, Ben shot himself out of the water and into the air above, making a spectacle of himself as he yelled out, "Welcome, one and all, to the last great awakening event of the Church of Myriad. Many of you know the drill by now, so sit tight as I get to you all. And other than that, someone look after Verbum because it looks like my grand entrance was a bit too much for the guy. And take my heartfelt apology for doing that to you, Verbum. I'll make it up to you in the future." There was already a few going to look after the other summoned before he said anything, and a few other disappointed looks beyond that for the childish display, but he'd take whatever opinions anyone else wanted to give if it meant he wasn't going to be caught for the things going on within his soul, and he landed by the Guildmaster Toner's side, ready to be guided through the biggest crowd yet. And hope there's no more surprise results akin to what happened with Abel. Seeing as how that seemed like an outlier, I should be able to finish everyone, but if I can't, I'm going to be plenty disappointed myself. With the rest of the third tiers waiting to benefit from his power all already gathered, he searched their minds and souls for everything he could find to try and transmit all of the relevant skill information he held for whatever extra benefits it might give them, as well as ensure the rest there got it too as he was invited to the first party, touching his crystal and looking at his options once he joined. Available jobs: Trap User Craftsman, Alchemy Path Craftsman, Artistic Path Craftsman, Blacksmith Path Craftsman, Cooking Path Craftsman, Stonecrafts Path Craftsman, Sewing Path Mathematician, High Destruction, Mage Beginner, Puppeteer Assassin, Cycler Beginner, Dancer and Treesowl, Creator Eldritch Mind, User King of Mana King of Stamina, Mind Breaker, Intelligence Embodiment, King of Vitality, Therapist, Total Self, Degenerate Body, User Divine Body, User Demonic Body, User Foul, Tank Resistant, Tank Mortal Realm Actualizer. 29 options left, with the majority of them about to be cleared away like they were nothing. It barely mattered which ones he would pick first amidst all of the groups he was going to be able to go through that day. For no reason in particular, he decided to get his king jobs finished first, beginning with the highest of that option sitting in his list. Give me King of Mana. Acquired job. King of Mana LV0. Massive bonuses granted to improving mana and mana recovery rate. Mana enhancement level increased. Mana recovery rate enhancement level increased. Max level of the King of Mana job achieved. Nice and easy. He grinned. The volume of souls he could now make even without his jacket, thanks to how high his mana volume had already gotten to, made finishing that particular job simple. Next then, let's go with King of Stamina. Acquired job. King of Stamina LV0. Massive bonuses granted to improving stamina. Stamina enhancement level increased. Max level of the King of Stamina job achieved. Another satisfying result that he was already looking forward to taking advantage of. He moved to his next party. A prior discussion meaning that he wouldn't need to immediately help a party holding a third tier. After all, he'd helped Faust finish the option he'd held without taking any other ones before it. The timing and situation demanding as much yet was still something that needed to be made up, leaving him to enjoy his final king job. King of Vitality. Acquired job. King of Vitality LV0. Massive bonuses granted to improving vitality and vitality recovery rate. Vitality enhancement level increased. Vitality recovery rate enhancement level increased. Max level of the King of Vitality job achieved. And there's my king jobs complete for now. Can't wait for all of the power you're gonna get for this to go to your head. Oh, it's already going to my head. I'm just compartmentalizing it away to a secret back corner of my mind. With that done though, I think I'll take my last option that sits in a similar vein. Let's find out what Intelligence Embodiment is going to do for me. Acquired job. Intelligence Embodiment LV0. Massive bonuses granted improving to intelligence. Unnatural intelligence enhancement level increased. Max level of the Intelligence Embodiment job achieved. And now I'm officially a contender for an attribute enhancement. Wonder just how good it would turn out for me if I managed to get it to the third tier? Considering all of the other bonuses you've got going to it, I can't begin to guess, but lucky for me, you're probably not awakening that one even if you take Eldritch Mind User. Ugh, yeah, I know. I really do need to see if I can figure out a way to get another fourth tier job. World Killer was so good, and I now have all of these fun and exciting ways of powering through any option I get. I could do to take on a few more. What are some equivalents of killing multiple planets, power-wise? You think blowing up a star would get me any exciting options? I think with your luck, blowing up a star would somehow lead to the star races deciding to war on us too. Rather not take that chance. I'd make sure it wasn't inhabited first. I'm not a monster. Your status disagrees. No, the bastards who keep giving me stupid titles disagree. My poor status is innocent. Yeah, for now, just think about what you're taking next because you've got a third tier up. Yeah, I'll take a peek first then. While he'd be sure to finish them with no difficulty so long as he took a sacrilege job, he only had a few of those left and wanted to be sure they'd be used appropriately on anything that might have been too hard for either his soul source or Eldritch Mind to finish alone, leaving him to search the mind of the one he'd be helping next, but finding it wouldn't require a deep dive to find the nature of their job and skill when that third tier was the Divine Chef. Okay, she won't need a sacrilege job for sure, so in that case, since there's a mind user in this party to gain most of the experience, let's go with Soul Creator. Acquired job Soul Creator. Major bonuses granted to improving vitality, vitality recovery rate, mana, and mana recovery rate. All soul skills will receive a major growth bonus. Soul source level increased. Acquired skill Soul Regeneration Enhancement Level 0. A job he'd originally been putting off for fear that the nature of it was too aligned with making souls and as a result, would eliminate the benefits of making them that he was using to cheat the job system, with the power of his mind and just as importantly, now being a contender for that unique magic as well. Whatever bite it might have taken out of the total experience he would produce for that group became negligible for the rest he had, leaving the expected notification only a few minutes later. Max level of the Soul Creator job achieved. Do you think there will be any bad consequences if I become the god who produces souls in this universe? Probably, but I think it's better for everyone, by which I mean me, if we don't think about it too hard until it actually happens. If you want to talk consequences though, consider the fact that, despite having a skill that reduces the level of harm done to your soul, you've somehow managed to claim one that would make your soul better at healing itself as well. That's a good consequence, though. Gonna need to get some soul damage when I get home to start working on leveling it. You disgust me. Hey, a bit of pain now means less pain later, and besides, I've said before I want to awaken soul resilience one day if I can, right? This is definitely the sort of skill that would merge into it, and then from there I could actually start trying to awaken my soul expansion too. You are genuinely going to manage to destroy your soul one day, and while it will be very, very sad for everyone, no one will be surprised. I'm careful-ish, it'll be fine. Anyway, next job. Let's say Mind Breaker this time. Ensure your favorite authors get the support they deserve. Read this novel on Royal Road. Acquired job Mind Breaker. Major bonuses granted to improving intelligence, mana, and mana recovery rate. All mind and destruction skills will receive a major growth bonus. Mind Break level increased. Max level of the Mind Breaker job achieved. Oh neat, wasn't expecting bonuses to my destructive skills or my mana. This was better than I'd hoped. And one more absolutely horrible sounding job to add to your ever-growing list. Are you just here for the color commentary, or is there a real reason you're sticking around? This is me trying to get a jump on any horrific options that might pop up. I don't want to be unprepared for whatever might happen when you end things here. Fair. He couldn't exactly promise nothing would happen considering how much he was going to have to go through, but at the very least, he could say that so far things had seemed normal, perhaps even a little dull. While he hadn't been expecting to gain any new skills from his embodiment or king jobs, the fact that he'd gone through 6 options already and only gained a single new one couldn't help but be disheartening. I wouldn't be too down about that when you consider how you do things. With the way you take jobs and gain skills and other status benefits, there genuinely can't be a ton of spare potential still sitting around your soul to grow into something fuller at this point. Ugh, I know, but I like getting them. It's exciting to see what I end up with each time. I suppose it would be when it seems you have a greater than not chance of getting something nobody else in the world has ever heard of. So what's the next one? MMH, I'm thinking we'll see what Total Self has to offer. Acquired job Total Self. Major bonuses granted to improving all attributes. All skills will receive a major growth bonus. Multiversal inclination level increased. Alien sense level increased. Max level of the Total Self job achieved. Well, that was unexpected. Yeah, in the best possible way. Oh god, I get it. Total Self may have appeared after I'd taken Body Master, but that was also long after I'd finished Mind and Soul Master too. Mind, Body, and Soul, I'd bet completing the Master jobs for all 3 unlocks that, a job that covers everything. Sweet, then on to the next 3rd tier. Looks like our next lucky godling is going to be another one of the summoned. The Zone of Empowering Holder? A mass buffing skill then? MMH, I don't think it should be anything too crazy, but to be on the safe side, we'll take a sacrilege job. Let's see what Degenerate Body User has in store for me. Acquired job, Degenerate Body User. Major bonuses granted to improving all attributes. All body and sacrilege skills will receive a major growth bonus. Flesh regeneration level increased. Fracture resistance level increased. Bludgeoning resistance level increased. Max level of the Degenerate Body User job achieved. Alright, marginally less murderable now, big fan of that, and with 2 more jobs in the same vein, might as well keep going. Let's take Demonic Body User. Acquired job, Demonic Body User. Major bonuses granted to improving strength, agility, and stamina. All body and demon skills will receive a major growth bonus. Strength enhancement level increased. Agility enhancement level increased. Max level of the demonic body user job achieved. So did you consider the fact that taking that job might have awakened your integrated demon body skill? And even if it didn't, it's definitely going to make it easier to awaken in the future. Of course, I considered it. You know what else I considered, though? How good a second-tier body job would be, and would you look at that? I was right. Now just one more to go. Acquired job. Divine body user. Major bonuses granted to improving strength, agility, and stamina. All body and divine skills will receive a major growth bonus. Integrated divine body level increased. Balance enhancement level increased. Max level of the demonic body user job achieved. Knowing that you still have more to go is making me nauseous. Not to put too fine of a point on it, but how could that even be possible? Were you not technically a machine? And all of the souls it holds, with every piece of me remembering well what it was like to feel sick to my stomach. I'm just imagining what you'll be like if you live another decade and getting shivers. Of excitement, clearly horror. This entire day is just going to make it easier for you to awaken so many of your stupid skills, and I'd rather not find out what some of them are going to do. You talking second or third tier? If you live long enough, both. Of course, the idea of you somehow awakening something like your condemnation has a special sort of dread to it. I'd rather not imagine what you'd be capable of if you did that. That's one of my more interesting options. How could you not want to see what it would turn into? And I'm also pretty into claiming more and more power over the domain of the gods at this point. I'd love to see what realm access would awaken to too. Ugh, of course you would. Don't worry, you're gonna love it if I get to properly ascend. We'll have a blast up there. For now though, since I couldn't help Rook even if I wanted to, because he's still trapped at the bottom of the ocean. For who could guess what reason, that means I only have 3 third tiers left to help with so long as none of them get an advanced option, and since the ones I already helped didn't, I'm just going to take my last sacrilege aligned job with Regnal, the guy who murdered 10 of the summoned he came with. His punishment may be pending, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't be as useful as possible until then. Fair enough. Either way, I'm taking Foul Tank. Acquired job Foul Tank user. Major bonuses granted to improving all attributes. All defensive and sacrilege skills will receive a major growth bonus. Defense inclination level increased. Perfect absorption resistance level increased. Max level of the Foul Tank job achieved. With the level to his absorption resistance, Ben quickly redid the enchantments that were enhancing the effects of his Morbusial and Deathstone bands before putting them away and moving on, once more following the trend of the last one. Resistant Tank. Acquired job, Resistant Tank. Major bonuses granted to improving vitality. Vitality recovery rate, strength, and stamina. All defense skills will receive a major growth bonus. Max level of the Resistant Tank job achieved. And with that, I'm left with only one guaranteed second and third tier job with only first and a couple mystery options left, along with a whole lot of disappointment about not unlocking more as I worked my way through all of these because man, I was at least expecting a few new things to pop up during all of this. Alright, I guess I'll take my last magic option then. Give me High Destruction Mage. Acquired job, High Destruction Mage. Bonuses granted to improving mana, mana recovery rate, and intelligence. Destruction and any related skills will receive a growth bonus. Unending extraction enhancement level increased. Deep material sense level increased. Max level of the High Destruction Mage job achieved. Oh, better than I'd hoped for if I'm being honest, and that means the next person is Verbum. Definitely owe him an apology sometime. To be clear, however you knocked him out isn't going to leave lasting damage, is it? Of course not. I just applied the way I'd force my body to sleep to him when I connected to him. He's fine. Hell, he's going to be better than fine, seeing as how he's going to wake up from a nice little nap with his job done. And to make that easy on me, I saved this option specifically. Mortal Realm Actualizer. Acquired job, Mortal Realm Actualizer LV0. Major bonuses granted to improving vitality, vitality recovery rate, and intelligence. Actualization and any related skills will receive a major growth bonus. Mortal Realm Actualization Enhancement has awakened to unnatural Mortal Realm Actualization Enhancement. Max level of the Mortal Realm Actualizer job achieved. An excellent result that still left his brow furrowed and a comment on his lips that he only barely managed to keep confined within his mind. Is every skill I have that's vaguely mind-related going to get the unnatural prefix? Except it's not like actualization got it when it awakened. Come on. I can assure you, of the gods who know you're capable of doing this, all of us view it as fairly unnatural. So I might be able to blame the current name on all of you talking behind my back. Got it. At the very least it would level quickly, and since he'd begun doing exactly that as soon as he'd taken the job, it had finished too under the benefits of his mind and the speeds he could think at, leaving one final third tier to take advantage of his work. With plenty of jobs still on his list to go, letting him turn to the guild master beside him. There are groups prepared in case I had extras I could do, right? I've currently got 7 more I can work through. Are there enough to fill them up? Technically, he had nearly twice that, but he'd decided to leave his various crafting path jobs in the event he ever had anyone specific he wanted to help speed through, or else if the gods wanted to make a new deal for him to help anyone else. While every bonus was sure to help, he had to admit that by that point, first-tier ones weren't going to do much in the face of his goals when he already had so much else going to his various attributes and skills. They could be handy, of course, and they'd do their part in chipping away at the mountain that was his goals, but he was neither curious nor excited enough about them to make taking them then a significantly better option than saving them for a future use. From what I understand, they only prepared 2 more beyond what you'd normally do. My apologies. So for more jobs before my last 3rd tier. It's fine. I'll talk to the gods about getting those last few finished later then. In that case, show me who's next. Led to another group, he eyed the choices he had left, thinking them over the best he could when none of them were particularly exciting, ultimately making a choice for entirely personal reasons. Beginner Dancer. Acquired job. Beginner Dancer LV0. Bonuses granted to improving vitality, agility, and stamina. All dancing skills will receive a growth bonus. Max level of the Beginner Dancer job achieved. Really? What can I say? Thera likes to dance and I like trying to make her happy. So taking a job that would help me improve gets high marks from me. Plus, it has the small, added benefit of being the first job today to give me an advanced option, even if it is just the dancer job. Considering that I have only first-tier options left, I'm not expecting anything life-changing. I feel comfortable saying that even if that's true, Assassin would have been better than Beginner Dancer. Yeah, and I'll take that next then. Acquired job. Assassin LV0. Bonuses granted to improving vitality, agility, and stamina. All assassin skills will receive a growth bonus. Max level of the assassin job achieved. Same attribute bonuses as Beginner Dancer, that's kind of neat. Nothing else to it though. It will almost certainly be giving you bonuses to some of your defensive skills. Also that stealth you never level. It's not like that comes up often. Besides, if we're being serious, then the bigger benefit would be anything it should be doing for my marksmanship or aim. Wouldn't mind awakening either of those options if I could just get the chance. What would either even do if they awakened? At this point, I think the only thing that could improve your aim more would be if your vision was enhanced, and your marksmanship seems to mostly depend on the quality of the guns you can make. Well, seeing how it would change me is just a part of the thrill of awakening, right? Anyway, next job. I'm thinking therapist. Acquired job. Therapist LV0. Bonuses granted to improving vitality, stamina, and intelligence. All therapy skills will receive a growth bonus. Acquired skill Calming level 0. Max level of the therapist job achieved. Alright, nothing crazy but a new skill, so I'll take it. Any idea what calming does? Haven't heard of it, but I could try to guess. MMH, give me a minute first. I'll see if I can figure it out. Calming level increased. 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 Do I want to ask what you just did? Quox's soul continues to make for a decent place to experiment. But relax, that was arguably the nicest I've treated the guy in millennia. Calming appears to do what it says. Let me calm a person I'm connected to and help stabilize their mind a bit, which means not only will I be able to give a bit more help to the prisoners I've still got put away, I might be able to use this to fix Quox fast between rounds of, let's call it training. And ignoring the fact that you sound like a sociopath for that second bit, I feel the need to remind you that altering people's minds is a crime, just in case you ever feel tempted to use it on someone you don't like. Hey now, I'm both better and worse than that because if it ever came to using a skill on someone I don't like, I'm sure as hell not making them calm when I have so many other funner options instead. Weird fun fact for you, as far as I can tell, no nation anywhere has written any laws about doing anything to souls since that's normally the domain of the gods and soul mages. I could condemn any of my enemies and have a strong legal case that I've done nothing wrong, and even all of you gods would have a hard time arguing that fact when you all do the same when you want to. Okay, not sure how that would work out for you in practice, but let's not find out, shall we? Relax, it was just a hypothetical. Even I view this particular skill of mine as being unethical, even though you both continue to train it and are curious about how it might awaken. Who says you can't be curious about things you think might be problematic? Besides, since I can send souls up to you instead of hell, there's room to argue it's not entirely bad. Fine, whatever you say. For now, one more left and then your last third tier. What are you picking? Well, while I can't deny the potential allure of jobs as excitedly named as Cycler and Beginner Puppeteer, and don't forget Atre. We're absolutely forgetting Atre. Anyway, as things are, we're going back to the top. I'm taking Trap User. Acquired job, Trap User LV0. Bonuses granted to improving strength, stamina, and intelligence. All trap skills will receive a growth bonus. Max level of the Trap User job achieved. MMH, underwhelming way to end things. Was one skill or level really too much to hope for? You've gained so many new skills and levels today. Learn to be satisfied with what you've got. Besides, it's not like you don't have one more third tier to go through. Well, yeah, and I guess I know what job I'm taking for him too, so let's go see what my very absent teacher's been up to for the last little while. So, there's my absent teacher. Ben grinned as he went over to greet the Yeti, seeing Falk for the first time in weeks. Have you been all this time? Your poor grand student might not even remember your face with how long it's been since you've stopped by. At what point will you have been absent enough that I get to start calling it my shop? Never, 'cause I wouldn't sell it for the world. You sure? I'm pretty rich now. Give me a little bit longer, and I might be able to buy the planet if I really want. PFFF, then you can do what you want when you do. And you been keeping well? Boy? Between Sonia and Nair, I've been getting the impression I missed something big with you while I've been off working. MMH, you could say that. I'll fill you in a bit after this. So for now, why don't we get your job sorted out? Ha, I'll take it. Never dreamed I'd get it done this fast when I reached this point. Feels more than a little weird knowing I'm already going to have to go back to a lower job. Well, considering how much power you now have, I'm sure whatever you pick next is going to be pretty quick. For now, though, keep your expectations in moderation. You're definitely going to be finishing it faster than if I wasn't with you, but slower than the rest I just finished. I saved a hard job for last. Touching his crystal one last time revealed that taking Trap User had given him access to a master job for it after, but he ignored it. It made it to the top of the list as for what he'd take the next time, but in that moment he had a different goal, taking the last of his third-tier options, and with that firmly set he told the system exactly what he'd wanted. Give me Eldritch Mind User. Acquired job. Eldritch Mind User Level 0. Divine bonuses granted to improving intelligence. All mental skills will receive a massive growth bonus. Multiversal inclination level increased. Mind break increased. Name, Ben Hef. Race human. Titles: Apostle of Myriad, the Forgotten One, Miracle Maker, Skill Learner, Enemy of Aneth, Trial Defier, Trial Breaker, Godslayer, Monster, Madman, God Killer, Threat, the Mad Apostle, Destined Holder of Connect, God of Destruction, creator of life, awakener, maniac, brutal blacksmith, defier of gods, title holder, enemy of Valencia, great teacher, student of Helori, myriads monster, outsider slayer, demigod slayer, transgressor, destined holder of mental symbiosis, destined god of alien thought structure, destined holder of soul production, job holder, destined holder of actualization, enemy of Duna, demon slayer, world slayer, demigod of growth and gain, first human god, first of the faith. Jobs: Eldritch Mind User, LV0. Previous jobs: Apprentice Craftsman, Craftsman, Priest, Enchanter, Mind User, Magic Item Maker, Magic Weapon Maker, High Enchanter, Fractured Mind User, Tree Tamer, High Craftsman, Apprentice Mage, True Mage, Tank, Heretic, Adventurer, Divine Heretic, Kin, Master Craftsman, Master Enchanter, Scholar, Connected Enchanter, Infernal Craftsman, Marksman, Destruction Mage, Material Mage, High Material Mage, Profane Enchanter, Master Material Mage, Impious Creator, Mind Master, Master Adventurer, Otherworldly Craftsman, Material Creator, Master of All, Ritual Enchanter, Holy Craftsman, Cursed Item Maker, Actualizer, Summoned Enchanter, Destructive Craftsman, Soul Mage, Freak Mind User, Unholy Thinker, Polymath, Alien Mind, Soul User, Soul Master, Evil Soul User, Soul Defiling Gardener, High Actualizer, World Killer, Connect Master, Abysmal Connector, Master of Destiny, Hive Brain, Divine Enchanter, Inclination Master, Slayer, Judge, Holy Adversary, Title Master, Beneficiary, Divine Kin, Multiversal Material Mage, Expert, Body User, High Tank, King of Intelligence, Body Master, Master Tank, Primordial Heretic, God-Defiling Gardener, Master Actualizer, Outsider, High Marksman, Fallen Actualizer, King of Mana, King of Stamina, King of Vitality, Intelligence Embodiment, Soul Creator, Mind Breaker, Total Self, Degenerate Body User, Demonic Body User, Divine Body User, Foul Tank, Resistant Tank, High Destruction Mage, Mortal Realm Actualizer, Beginner Dancer, Assassin, Therapist, Trap User. Attributes: Vitality, 11056 Vitality Recovery Rate, 610/HR Mana, 30129 Mana Recovery Rate, 3274/Min Strength, 8849 Agility, 3372 Stamina, 18767 Intelligence, 163, 541 Affinities. Light, 3 Life, 2 Fire, 4 Water, 3 Air, 4 Earth, 2 Death, 3 Dark, 1 Space, 4 Time, 5 Resistances. Light, 68 Life, 72 Fire, 75 Water, 69 Air, 66 Earth, 81 Death, 78 Dark, 85 Space, 63 Time, 61. Blessed Skills: Unending Crafting, LV9 * Divine Enchanting, LV9 * Eldritch Mind, LV0 ***. Passive Skills: Evil God of Sacrilege, LV2 ***. Bind Integrated Demonic Body, LV9 Divine Defense Enhancement, LV0 ***. Perfect Absorption Resistance, LV1 ***. All Affinity Resistance Enhancement, LV9 Bite Enhancement, LV9 Piercing Resistance, LV9 Artisan's Soul * Unnatural Intelligence Enhancement, LV9 * Blood Regeneration. LV9 Unending Extraction Enhancement, LV2 * Soul Affinity, LV9 * Tier 2 Modifier Compatibility * Deep Material Sense, LV3 * Flavor Enhancement, LV6 Balance Enhancement, LV8 Soul Expansion, LV9 Defiler of Ambrosia Destruction Affinity, LV9 * Evil Affinity, LV9 * Soul Resilience, LV9 Defense Inclination. LV7 Vitality Enhancement, LV5 Vitality Recovery Rate Enhancement, LV5 False Ben Integrated Divine Body, LV7 Mithril Blood Mana Enhancement, LV5 Mana Recovery Rate Enhancement, LV5 Strength Enhancement, LV4 Stamina Enhancement, LV4 Bludgeoning Resistance, LV3 Agility Enhancement, LV2 Flesh Regeneration, LV2 Fracture Resistance, LV2 Unnatural Mortal Realm Actualization Enhancement, LV0 * Multiversal Inclination, LV4 Alien Sense, LV2 Soul Regeneration Enhancement, LV0 Active Skills. Love this novel? Read it on Royal Road to ensure the author gets credit. Stealth LV2 Deep Connection LV9 * Cycling LV3 Marksmanship LV9 Material Manipulation LV9 * Swimming LV3 Dance LV3 Hive Mind LV9 * Rule Bender LV1 Aim LV9 Esoteric Actualization LV9 * Soul Source LV9 * Condemnation LV9 Mind Break LV9 * Realm Access LV8 Calming LV9 Blessings Myriads Blessing Analias Blessing Hiloris Blessing Galwaxes Blessing Elvits Mana Regeneration Blessing Anethas Blessing Earth Pantheons Blessing Life Pantheons Blessing Dark Pantheons Blessing Alencias Blessing Nairs Blessing Yuzus Mana Regeneration Blessing Child of Chaos Owns Blessing Fixthas Blessing Passive Pantheons Blessing Dunas Blessing Jagals Blessing Non-Affinitied Pantheons Blessing Crafting Pantheons Blessing Velmets Blessing Trials Trial of Analia and Talona Trial of the Dead God Earth Tower Life Tower Dark Tower Non-Affinity Tower Craftsman's Tower Levels to 2 skills I just leveled for different jobs? Those massive bonuses are sure putting in the work. And getting more divine bonuses too. Even if it's just for my intelligence, it feels so freaking good that I barely mind that it didn't give me any new skills. Considering the raw power of your current mind, I doubt there's much room for any other mind skills that it wouldn't already cover. You're probably right, and I'll happily take what I got. Just look at my status. It's so long and unwieldy. I freaking love it. Your previous job section is just a block of text at this point. Yeah, it's great. And I still have more to do too. I have 5 more jobs I'm willing to spend helping people with now that this is all done. Maybe up to 7 since I unlocked Trap Master, and that should be giving me an advanced job so long as it's a normal master option, and Beginner Puppeteer should at least give me Puppeteer as a job once it's done, so tell Fixed in case he wants to figure out what groups to set up for me later. I know I've already helped plenty of contenders in all of this, but it doesn't hurt to help more. Not your path jobs then? Saving those for if anyone or thing worthwhile pops up that I can use them on, since their bonuses aren't exactly going to be crazy or lined up with attributes I really care about growing. And Atre. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. I'm not actually sure if there's any contenders with second-tier jobs left after all of you've done. But at the very least I'll let him know so he can start figuring it out. Considering the bomb you dropped on him before, the fact that you're willing to keep doing this will make for a lovely point in your favor when word gets out that your disgusting, monstrous talent in leveling is continuing on with your worst skill. My worst skill is actually flavor enhancement, and it's not even close. Thanking reality as a whole that I didn't get a new level to it. Ben, when one looks at all of your jobs, blessings, and other growth factors, you're going to be close to leveling it and every other first-tier skill you have, whether you like it or not. Okay. Ignoring you now in favor of talking to my teacher. Show's over, so get back to work. MMH. Just don't do anything too objectionable while I'm gone. Don't worry, that at least is a few days away. His god grumbling off, Ben focused back on his teacher, Falk already examining his card in curiosity. So, how long do you think before this is going to be done, boy? A few days, maybe over a week, depending on how things go. I've got 2 real cheats for getting through a job, but one of them isn't really going to work here because of the one I took. Still, that should be plenty fast. There wasn't even a mind user put in Fox Party because there'd be no point. Eldritch Mind User as a job had to account for the nature of his mind and how much experience it would produce, meaning he was back to relying entirely on soul production for the experience it would give, even if things wouldn't exactly be bad on that front either. Even without his jacket, he now had a mana pool over 30,000 and a recovery rate that meant it wouldn't need even 10 minutes to get back if he were to empty it. As soon as the job was taken, he was making souls and making progress. More than I'd be able to do on my own. His teacher nodded. But with that sorted, you gonna finally tell me what else is going on? MMH, sure. First though, let's find a good place to sit down and talk. He didn't want to be around for whenever Verbum would wake up. He didn't even want to be in that same city if he could help it when he was still trying to push off the inevitable reveal even slightly longer, leaving them to go through the gate to Analia instead, finding the closest cafe before taking food to a nearby park before Ben went on. Okay, so I need you to not look at me while I say this. Why? Because I'm afraid the shock is going to have you using your soul sight on me, and frankly, I've got some reasons right now I don't really want that happening. Feels dramatic, but fine, Falk agreed as he turned away, waiting for Ben to speak again. Since I'd seen you last, I reached the third tier for 2 skills. My Eldritch Mind and my Sacrilege. Fuck. Alright, I'll admit it. You made a good call getting me to turn away, his teacher said, turning back but rubbing at his eyes as he did. Damn it all, boy, how? Long story short, I connected to my god hoping that connect would awaken. But instead my mind and sacrilege took the brunt of it and things ended up like this. But it's fine. Well, mostly fine because some gods were rather vocally unhappy about one of those awakenings, and that means my connect still isn't growing, but that's okay, I'm working on it. PFFF. Still not satisfied even as a double third tier? Considering how handy reaching that level is, I'm never going to stop trying for it. Especially for the attribute bonuses alone. Even with the 2 I've already gotten. One more awakening means growing by another quarter, and I can't stress enough how badly I want that. I suppose yours are probably pretty ridiculous as it is. You don't know the half of it, he said as he hid everything but his attributes on his card and handed it over, hearing his teacher whistle as he looked. The hell are you doing with all of that intelligence at this point? Being very, very clever. I've got high hopes of getting that above 200,000 before the next wave. Why would you even want that? Bragging rights? Also the slim hope that it might lead me to discovering some cool new mind skill that can only exist for people with over 100,000 of that attribute. I'd really take anything I can get. What about you? The gods working you to death. I wouldn't exactly put it like that. Considering how much time I spend at the shop, I'd see you pass through if you were coming back at all. It's not like you don't go off plenty. I know at least one time I got back out to Stonewall and you weren't around. Okay. True enough, I guess. But in that case, you need any help? Help? Sure, my favorite teacher is out there being abused by the gods of the world. I can at least check if there's anything I can do for you, be it lend a hand with your work or go up there and tell off the gods on your behalf. Just let me know. The offer got a small laugh from the Yeti, Falk reaching out to pat Ben's back as he answered. Appreciate it, boy. But don't worry about it. I might be keeping busy, but you've got your own work and life. No need for me to pile any more onto it. Well, alright, but if you change your mind, then just let me know. Not to brag, but I think enough gods are unhappy enough about the whole evil god of sacrilege thing that they haven't even bothered asking me to work at all since I got it, at least not beyond helping people finish their jobs. Back up. What's that about evil gods? The system's naming sense for my highest skill, I wouldn't mind it. I think you probably should though. Evil's subjective, it's fine. Anyway, if things do get too busy for you, then send the word and I'll come running. Well, thanks. I appreciate the thought. In the few days since finishing helping the third tiers, Ben allowed his regular goals to change somewhat in the face of what was to come. His mass soul modification event only 2 days away from then, with the attributes he had going to determine how much he'd be able to help anyone else the world overgrown once he modified their souls. With the gods playing their paltry role, Fixed got him his meager payment for what he'd done in saving both Faust and potentially the planet, as his mana recovery rate was increased by 200 points. Even if that didn't feel like enough. Every point he could squeeze out of himself would ultimately help everyone else, leading him to see just what more he could gain for himself as he went. Training mana was easy. He just needed to make souls for his teacher's job without relying on his coat. And vitality was just as much so for his Deathstone band. Intelligence grew by itself by that point and was the one attribute he held that he could honestly say that the average person wouldn't need as much as he could give, leaving only the more physical ones to remain. With weights attached to his limbs, he used some of his mana to push against them to increase their resistance on his muscles given the sheer amount of power his body now held, and even resorted to using the treadmill he'd made to train Jake's stamina too, hating every second of it as he felt himself sweat, even if it was paying off for him in the end, with his points slowly ticking up under the benefit of his effort and all of the growth factors he held. And all of that's training my stamina too. But oh my god, I can't wait to get this stupid crap done. None of it felt like great uses of his time, but he'd only been doing it for a few days and he would be doing it for only a little longer still, no matter how it made him feel. Once he was modifying souls, he wouldn't need to put up with any sort of activity like that again and could go back to focus entirely on training his skills, even if there was still some dissatisfaction on that front as well. He still had yet to get his third level of sacrilege, and beyond that, felt no closer to awakening anything else. No matter what he did to the gods strapped to his arm, it wasn't pushing him past any of his mortal limits, even with millennia passing in his head, all telling him that he was reaching a point that he already knew he was going to hit. He needed a change. So I'll politely borrow and/or kidnap Yuzu later to give me a hand. But until then, he glanced at Dallaire, hard at work by his side of one of his clones and Mora with her, his student having convinced the young boy to join her for some lessons from time to time for the company he offered and let them work together, even if one of them was clearly getting more out of it. He didn't get the impression that Mora had shared the little ways he was helping her, but the friendship of a soul spirit was no insignificant thing and, combined with Ben's lessons, was almost certainly what led her to getting levels to both material user and destruction once more despite the recentness of her last ones, and left a new job notification going off in her head. Well, good enough time for a small break as any, he told himself as he stopped the treadmill and walked over, trying to look cheerful and positive and not at all as exhausted as the exercise had made him feel. Good work there, kiddo. Looks like it's time for your next job. With how quickly she was starting to finish her own, instead of tossing her his crystal, he quickly materialized her one of her own, making a necklace with the clasp holding the gem possessing a tree motif that filled her mind with options as soon as she took it, lighting up her face for how many there were now that her current job was done and her path jobs were unlocked. Meaning as well that everything she had now was fairly specialized. The path jobs meant to gain experience from specific aspects of the crafting skill, and her current mage jobs, being plant, material, and destruction, all being aimed at those particular magics. Stolen content warning. This content belongs on Royal Road. Report any occurrences. Really, her broadest job was only barely more so than the rest, with Enchanter giving some level of experience to all skills, even if what anything other than enchanting would receive was going to be insignificant. So then, he asked her, what's it going to be this time? He watched her brow crinkle in thought, trying to decide that very same question for herself before making her choice and getting the expected notification for it. I want to take Enchanter. The statement bringing the expected notifications. Dallaire was nearly jumping for joy with what came with them. Enchanting knowledge at its 9th level. A skill Ben had once held himself before it had been merged into his general knowledge skill. The fact that she'd gained such a thing wasn't exactly unexpected given the way he would use his own powers to make her learn unnatural volumes of information, but the fact that she'd gained the skill just short of awakening was certainly a sign that he might have overdone his teaching by just a tad, with all of that information now strengthened by her skill as well as his own. So not exactly a huge change unless she were to awaken it, but considering awakening skills like that means applying knowledge, I can confidently say she's not close enough to that point yet. Still, it should make some decent bragging for her if it ever comes up, and if she ends up getting any more knowledge skills in the future, then we could look at the prospect of trying to get her to awaken to a general knowledge skill like me. Alright, something to keep an eye on as she progresses. Still, even if it wasn't something that was going to change her much beyond how his teachings already had, it was something she clearly expected to be grand enough to be celebrated, and he didn't want to disappoint, driving him to lift her up and spin around in good cheer. Fantastic work, Dallaire. Your efforts really are paying off. Huh. I'm doing my best. And succeeded. This should help you level your enchanting faster in the future too. Given the way knowledge works, so this is great. We'll have a few more 9th level skills in you before you know it. A statement that left her almost bashful as Ben put her back down, leaving Mora's eyes on her in curiosity while he spoke. Jobs seem interesting. They're pretty handy, Ben laughed. All of the ones on himself able to draw Mora's eye as well. You curious about them? It doesn't matter. I can't get anything from them that a mortal can. MMH, that's probably true, but that's no reason not to try taking one anyway if you want. Why not give it a try? He knew that the boy was correct. Spirits weren't growing creatures, so the act itself might have been meaningless. But that didn't have to be entirely related. Despite Ben's own fairly growth-obsessed nature, it didn't need to be the reason behind taking a job, and, offering a new crystal to the boy, he watched as Mora hesitantly took it. Well? Dallaire asked, looking interested as well while Mora tilted his head, more in curiosity at how he was interacting with the system itself rather than the options it held for him. I can choose between Great Soul Spirit or Beginner Puppeteer. No kidding, Ben grinned. I've got one of those options too. Probably can't guess which one though. He knew not all jobs were related to the skills one held and could instead have a variety of variables, with his Slayer job coming from the titles he held and both Judge and Trap User having come from his actions, but even then he hadn't been expecting the boy to have more than just the first, if only because of how young he was. But I guess he's doing the exact thing that got me that job option. Neat, makes me wonder what some of the other great spirits could potentially choose from if only they cared enough about it to take them. Also makes me wonder if we could get Mora any jobs related to art or smithing or cooking if we just practiced them enough. Really, it brought endless curiosity to his head that he ultimately had little to do with, while he couldn't help but wonder if there might be slightly more potential hidden away in the spirits than could immediately be seen. If there was, then that was something to look into further in the future. Instead, he gave the boy his attention, watching as he made his choice. I guess I'll go for Great Soul Spirit then. Mora's attention shifted even if nothing else came of it. The boy still seemed largely satisfied for at least trying it, leaving Ben to ruffle his hair. You're gonna have a long life ahead of you, kiddo. Even if it's not gonna grant you skills or levels, it's okay to just look at working through different jobs as something to do. Nothing wrong with just passing the time. The way it's interacting with my soul is interesting at least. It's something I can explore a bit. Well, in that case, as this world's foremost researcher in souls, let me know if you ever find anything interesting about it, alright buddy? Alright, I will. Great. But now, as sad as I am to say it, let's all get back to work. You two have more practicing to do, and unfortunately for me, I need to get back to running. Hey, so I've got a small question for you. Ben thought to the heavens as he stood in the street, wanting the distraction while he waited. Alright, what is it this time? A myriad asked him. And why are you in all faith right now? Not important. So here's the thing, Mora took a job today just for fun, but it got me thinking, what sort of jobs do gods get? You're part of the system, and you can't tell me none of you have ever gotten curious enough to dip down and touch a job crystal, so are there any interesting results for it? Oh that. Well, you're right enough about the other gods getting curious when they discovered they were integrated into the system, but we don't get options when we try. Seriously? Not even any lame ones entirely tied to whatever the god's domain is? Nope, we may have it bound to us, but it gives us nothing else, almost like it's rejecting doing anything more than the demands of its design. MMH, I guess if someone turned me into a tool, I wouldn't be inclined to give them much help either. Still pretty lame. Not even the ascended gods buck that trend? Nope. Equal parts interesting and disappointing. Kind of sad to hear I won't be able to keep up with doing it when I get up there. Might have to see if I can either find a workaround or else somehow bargain with the system into letting me keep getting them. Me and it both probably hold a semi-comparable hatred for the gods of the world. I'm sure we could come to an understanding. It's not a conscious being deciding to hate gods. And yet, I'm still willing to try if it comes down to it. If I could keep taking jobs into godhood, then who knows? Maybe I'll be able to make sure I come out ahead of the rest of you. You have 2 levels to evil god of sacrilege already. How much more ahead are you looking for? Just enough that all of the gods of the world couldn't stop me if I decided I wanted to do something. You know, very normal ambitions. Psychopath. Stop trying to give me titles like that. If it sticks, I'm gonna stop putting your name on things. Yeah, so again, why are you trying to kill some time in all faith? Last time I saw you, you were running on your little machine. Treadmill and... Okay, so the point of that was to try and squeeze a bit more into my attributes before I get to awakening. This is a similar attempt. You're getting a soul mage for something, aren't you? Ding ding ding, we have a winner. But can you guess why? No, and I don't want to. Nothing good comes from you playing coy. Although I do want to mention that even if you block the other gods, someone up here is going to catch her thinking about the things going on in your status when you're not around to block her. You seriously think I haven't thought of that? I'm already working on it. In fact, there they are right now. He could see Thera with Yuzu in the distance, letting him wave at them both as they made their way over, even if the soul mage looked mildly uncomfortable as she came. Hey Yuzu. You kind of look like you're struggling there. The fact that you sent Thera out to me specifically to tell me you need a hand and that I can't use my soul sight on you. While I do, it tells me that there's something going on in your soul worth seeing. Of course I'm struggling. So, what is it exactly you need? I'm looking for you to cast a few powerful spells on me. Hopefully, it will just be a few hours of your time. So if you wouldn't mind coming along. Fine. Where are we going? First stop, we need to see Thera's mom. I need to get directions. The brief visit to Pelania gave him the directions they needed as Thera flew them all out beyond the city's limits, into the surrounding farmland where many of the succubi's crops would be grown until eventually, the more normal plants any of them would expect to see took on a change. No longer passing through fields of vegetables and grains, they found themselves standing before an expanse of strange fruit trees, stretching out beyond what any of their eyes could see while displaying plainly magical effects. One chilled the environment around it, to a point that Ben could feel the temperature drop from where he was standing as they got closer, while another gave off a subtle light in its leaves. Compared to those two, the third looked almost plain, with that variety only taking on a strange, chitinous look that didn't exactly leave its fruits appealing, but none of that mattered. What did was the fact that what he was seeing was the result of 3 of his remaining god crystals, their effects warping the forms they were forced in. Though it looked like a vast grove of trees, in reality there were only 3, each stalk connected by a root system underground to make sure everything remained connected to the trapped god souls, allowing the various workers walking the area to harvest what was being forcibly grown to produce more of the divine potions strengthening the world. With one of those workers having noticed him, not any of the succubi or incubi out harvest fruit, but one with a more important role, with a dryad calling out to him. A misunderstanding already there. Support the creativity of authors by visiting the original site for this novel and more. Bloom! The woman yelled out happily, her eyes locked onto him, with the name bringing 3 more dryadic heads popping out of the woods as all 4 rushed over, taking on a more confused look as they got closer and their excitement faded. Wait, are you Dash? I'm not. Ben was quick to correct, watching as their looks turned instead to polite disappointment. He just modeled his form after me, which is why we share a resemblance. I'm Ben. I believe I helped you all awaken your magics. Oh, hello again, the one speaking said in a far more collected way as all of them politely lowered their heads, even if they gave off a small air of disappointment. Apologies for the mistake. We're still deeply grateful for the help you gave us. Don't worry about it. I've just come to look at the trees here a bit under the authority of Queen Pelania, but I'll stay out of everyone's way. If our presence is interfering with anyone's work here, just let us know and we'll try to work it out. All right? Should you need anything, then you can get any worker around to find us. The dryads walked back to the trees to continue their work, leaving the 3 of them to stand in a silence that Ben was the first to break. So, how long do you think till Bloom's got a few children? I think I don't want to think about my uncle having a harem of women around him, Thera said, putting her head in her hands. He's only existed for what, a month? He's existed for a whole lot longer than that. You know what I mean? Maybe they just enjoy his company. Thera, I don't have to be a mind reader to see what was going on there. Ugh. Then remind me when we go back that we need to get Mom or Dad or Aunt Lux to give him a talk about mortal relationships and how babies are made. I regret joining for this. How many dryads are working these fields, and how many of them want to sleep with my uncle? Not sure, but it's kind of neat, isn't it? Insha is the only half-spirit that was born from a spirit and a holder of an innate fire magic. It would be kind of interesting to see if any children born would have a more powerful plant magic like she did, or if she's a special case since she's a hybrid with another mana-based species. And other than that, dryads are a unisex race. I know that when they reproduce with a different species on the planet instead of with their trees, then there's the potential to produce male offspring, but since spirits don't actually possess genders no matter how they choose to present themselves to the world, does that mean that dryad spirit hybrids could only be female? And Dash. And Thera forcefully cut him off. Enough researcher ramblings about whatever's going to happen if my uncle sleeps with them. Okay, I'm done. I suppose I'll get my answers eventually anyway. Don't want to think about it. Just do whatever insane thing you came here to do, and we can all be on our way after. All right, got it. Yuzu, I'm gonna need a few spells on me. Ones that reduce my leveling and awakening thresholds, and ones that increase what I'd get from awakening, pretty please. He could see surprise in both of their eyes, neither having known exactly what he'd intended going out there, but with the request to lower his awakening threshold of all things. Both of them and his watching god thought they knew where he was going with that. So, since connecting to other gods didn't push you over the edge before, you're hoping that you'll have better odds of awakening connect if you use a soul mage while you do it. Myriad said in his head, trying to get another level to your sacrilege too while you're at it. MMH, you're partly right, and it's not like I'd say no to this somehow awakening connect for me, but unfortunately that's not the goal. How many times do I have to explain to you? In my head, time is relative. Not the goal? But even with Yuzu's spells, at this point your attributes aren't going to grow from a second-tier awakening, so... Oh no. Oh yes, he thought back as a grin stretched across his face and, before his god could stop him, he reached out to connect to one of the trees, touching the god's soul it held within. Huddled in on himself in a way that didn't allow the god to realize the change in his environment. Harrow's withdrawal gave Ben the room to examine him. Holding a form similar to a giant fly, Ben gently probed the mind of the forbidden god before him, finding its domains of power to be insects, decay, and opulence, and seeing in its mind the history where it had abandoned its lost world. Unlike Quax, the god before him wasn't filled with murderous spite but instead panic, a desire to live and continue to live that drove it beyond anything else, be it its duty to its believers or the safety of the world that took it in, leading to its place in the plot to create the demidemons, and in that action empowered the demon race for that mistake. It was a god ruled by its fears and had helped doom the world for them. But still, Ben said aloud, you'd think that a god of decay would understand that everything has to come to an end eventually. Seeing you cling so desperately to life that you doom everything else around you is embarrassing. You? The god Harrow gasped as he looked up to find who was speaking in his presence. But how? Doesn't matter because It was said with disinterest as Harrow moved. Pathetic as he may have been, he was still a deity and viewed Ben himself as nothing more than a mortal. The very one who had slit his throat, with no gods to protect him from the other's divine wrath. It was almost amusing, seeing one who'd fallen so low suddenly think they had either power or an outlet for his frustrations and, willing to let it go on for a bit, Ben let himself be attacked, the mental construct of himself in that mind space being hit and pulled at, the god trying to rip his body in half and failing completely to do anything that could be called harm. Right until the moment Ben grew bored enough to put a stop to it. Once he had, that little play was finished as thousands of new Bens filled the space, all speaking at once. Unrepentant till the end then, just like Quax. They all nodded in satisfaction as the thunder of so many of them speaking at once cowered the god before him. Good. If any part of you felt bad or shame, then I might have hesitated over what I'm about to put you through. What are you going to dash? He wasn't given the opportunity to say anything more. All at once, the many Bens moved, his own attacks not so harmless, and filled the space with the sound of that god's screams. In the few seconds the mortals around him watched, nothing seemed to change. Ben stood there, touching a branch until all at once his efforts bore fruit. That giant orchard filled with a flash of light like manna, the density and power of it telling Thera and Yuzu both the scale of what he'd done, while Ben got to listen to the notifications going through his mind at the same time the god screamed for mercy in his head, marking the success of his accomplishment along with doubtless more complications to come of it. Destruction Affinity has awakened to Destruction Authority. Acquired skill Destructive Touch. Acquired title Record Breaker. Integrated Divine Body level increased. Evil Affinity has awakened to Evil Authority. Acquired skill Evil Touch. Evil God of Sacrilege level increased. Integrated Divine Body level increased. Myriad asked in open horror, unable to believe the notifications he just heard going through his apostle's head. Even if he'd barely been able to figure out that that was what Ben had been aiming for before it happened. My best. We'll talk about it when I go up to your realm later, so grab the other two for me because this is going to be a long night. With the heavens blocked for all but his god, he had a while until word would get around that he'd had a new awakening, which meant he needed to focus on the world around him first. He could tell there were eyes on him, both from the workers harvesting fruits as well as from one dryad who'd been close enough to come see what had happened. But his eyes instead were on the two he was with to gauge their reactions. With Thera's face telling him of the mixed feelings she held about it while Yuzu was directing her gaze squarely at the ground, not trusting herself to look at him without taking a peek to which he was grateful for the restraint, letting him instead focus on his girlfriend before he spoke up. It wasn't connect, you don't have to worry about that. Ah, then what dash she started, sounding embarrassed to be caught hoping for his failure, even if he paid it no mind, placing a finger to his lips as he did. Secret. For now, at least, I'm trying my hardest to make sure this doesn't get out to the other gods of the world. But, well, it's gonna happen eventually, I just don't want it to be before I can talk to Myriad. I'll tell you soon though, okay? You'd better. And you'll tell me too, right? Yuzu said, fighting against her curiosity as she squeezed her eyes shut tight. When I see you next, sure. Out of curiosity, are you going to be involved at all in the mass soul modification I'm doing the day after tomorrow? Wait, is that what I'm participating in? If you're booked, then I'd assume so because having a soul mage around could only help. Okay, in that case, I'll let you know if you can look at my soul then, so do me a favor and suppress it until you see me. I don't think I can be trusted to open my eyes while you're still around right now. Then keep them closed and we'll guide you home, but before that he called over to the dryad standing off to the side. There should be a metal band wrapped around the trunk of this tree here. Can you take me to it? Yes I can, she agreed, not sure about what she'd seen or overheard and thus resolved not to think too hard about it. Instead leading the way for him and watched as he slipped down to where it was, trading the crystal it held for the one on his arm before she could react and left everyone to watch as the nature of that forest-like plant was altered before all of their eyes. And with that, we can get out of here. After making sure Yuzu got home safely and getting away from there as fast as possible before she could decide she wanted to sneak a peek, Ben and Thera went back to Analia to get home, with Thera full of unasked curiosity along the way. He couldn't deny her that curiosity either. He would have felt the same, but he needed time before he could reveal all of the changes within himself. Even if those awakenings had helped to push him to the third level of his sacrilege earlier than he'd expected, granting him a level of power and protection from the gods of that world that he didn't think they could beat, he still wanted to try to manage how they'd react when it was revealed, being something he'd instead need to talk about that night. No, she would find out eventually, but in the meantime, he needed to explore what the changes in himself would bring as well, with some at least already felt in the form of a new sense stretching out from him, touching all of the people they passed along the way. Even without connecting to her, Ben could clearly feel the sacrilege in Thera's soul, and while not as clear, he was aware of a few of her other skills as well, with her earth and dark magic being the most blatant, same as he felt for many others. He couldn't necessarily identify everything they held that he believed he could now affect, but what was happening was clear enough. To varying extents, he was detecting their evil and destructive skills. Love what you're reading? Discover and support the author on the platform they originally published on. Does how much of it I'm feeling depend on how much it qualifies as such? Even within the same skills across different people, it seems like I'm feeling them differently, so it might be depending on how evilly or destructively they're used or else how the holder of the skill or society itself views them. MMH, when I focus a bit, I think that might be a mix of it all, a bunch of different factors all at once. Let's see. The perks of walking through Analia meant that nearly everyone he passed had a natural charm that he could now identify through his new skills, a power that was viewed poorly across the planet and even by those who innately held it, and as he focused he believed he could tell who and what was classifying it as evil or destructive, be it the holders of it or society or a mix of the two, and with plenty of test subjects around he reached deeper with those new powers, connecting to his targets and hearing a few get levels as he did. Oh wow, he thought to himself as he rubbed his face. This is significant. The effects of an inclination was to lower leveling difficulty of their skill type as well as to reduce the mana cost of any skills under them, and it appeared that at the third tier, he was able to extend that effect beyond the limits of his own soul, giving him the chance to help raise the skills of anyone else who held an ability that qualified. Authority is right. It looks like I've just gained power over the evil and destructive skills of this world. This is going to require a lot more experimentation. Experimenting, he was already beginning on the new god strapped to his arm, Harrow acting as his new experience sink until whenever he ended up so broken that even fixing him would seem pointless, but that was a process he'd be at for a while to come. With a different topic in mind once they reached Thera's family home. So, who are you thinking? You mom, dad, Lux, or maybe Rit? Huh? For what? Skipping the task of explaining the details of mortal love to Bloom, and if he's not careful, he'll have a bunch of kids if no one explains it to him. You know, you'd somehow manage to make me forget that by being even more ridiculous. I could have gone without remembering. Sure, right until you come back and find yourself with a bunch of new cousins. I poked around the last Dryad's mind, and there's a dozen of them there, hired on to help with those fields. It's kind of interesting actually. From what I saw, it doesn't seem like they were even remotely attracted to the incubi they work around, so Bloom either won them over entirely with his personality or, considering the usual way they reproduce, having a plant they can hold a conversation with might be having some appealing psychological effect. I'm sure it's fine. We can ignore this, go home so you can talk to the gods, and then you can tell me whatever's been going on in your soul. Nice and dash. Oh, hey Bloom. Ben cut her off the moment they ran into the great plant spirit after rounding a corner. How are you doing? He was trying to play things off like they hadn't just been talking about him, but Ben found himself immediately distracted by a change in the spirit's body too subtle for Thera beside him to notice. His girlfriend more concerned about playing innocent too and hoping that they hadn't been overheard, lest they themselves would be forced to have that conversation with him. With the spirit seeming entirely ignorant to their behavior, instead smiling brightly as he saw them. Princess Ben, hello? What brings you here? Ahem. Just passing through. Bloom, Thera told him. Heading home for now? But have you been doing okay? Adjusting to the nature of life as a great spirit. Oh, well, you know it was a bit of a struggle at first, but I think I've been getting the hang of it. He laughed. I've been practicing my magic. To be inexperienced in it feels unnatural given what I was before, but I think I'm learning fast. For the other plant spirits, soon I'll grow to the proper standards of my station. That's great. That's really good to hear. You seem like you're doing a lot better than when you, well, were forced into existence? He laughed again despite the mood, showing there may have been a touch of mental unbalance still to work through that Thera forced herself to awkwardly chuckle at as well. Ah, yeah, that. But if you're doing good, then that's great. For now, though, we should probably be on our way. But before that, Ben interrupted. Just out of curiosity, and I'm really sorry if I'm wrong here, but is that a new body? Oh, this? Bloom asked, doing a spin and seeming excited to show it off. It is. A few of my friends convinced me to make a new one for myself. I don't really see much difference, but they sure seem to like it. All right, that's great to hear, buddy. Now, a little bit more curiosity, were those friends the Dryads who are working the fields, and is the plant you grew that body from one from their homeworld by any chance? Yeah, I think one of them mentioned that when they gave me the seeds. He laughed. I don't really get it, but they've been helping me with figuring out what it means to be a plant spirit, and they seem to like it, so it's the least I can do. I'm actually off to meet them now, so I need to be on my way, but it was great seeing you both. He walked off with the goodbye, not noticing the atmosphere he left behind, with Thera squeezing Ben's arm with the full force of her strength to try to keep from otherwise reacting. Okay, new plan, she said. We split up, track down both my parents as well as Auntie Lux and Rit, meet back up in the second floor lounge, and then abandon them to deal with whatever is going to come from this after we explain things while I go to sleep and try to forget this entire day. Hopefully without finding out that we're too late and that he's about to end up with a dozen children on the way. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. It was a while before Thera could sleep, the many events of the day playing havoc with her thoughts, but eventually her exhaustion won in the end, letting Ben send a part of himself up to his god's realm with 3 deities staring him down once he arrived. What took you so long? Myriad asked him, the stress in the god's voice sounding like it was going to reach a breaking point. Oh, well, Thera was having trouble getting to sleep, so I was trying to help her relax. We had a weird day. Discovered about a dozen Dryads might be trying to have children with Bloom. At least, I can't imagine why they'd ask him to replace his body if that wasn't what they were aiming for. Not that that was actually necessary. If Abris could impregnate Pelania with one made entirely of stone and Lux could have a child without really constructing a body at all, then dash. Focus. Ben. Besides, you could have come up here earlier if you wanted. I know you don't need to be asleep for it anymore. Okay, well, 1, I'm pretty sure I don't need to sleep in general anymore, and 2, a certain someone specifically told me not to spend all of my time in their realm, so I haven't been coming up until I'm done my things in the mortal realm, which spending time with my girlfriend absolutely qualifies as. Hell, Ori. He's going to give me an aneurysm. Huh, that's an interesting thought. Could your race get aneurysms in all of your subbrains? Not the time, Ben. And as amusing as this back and forth has been, Hell, Ori cut in. What exactly have you done that has Myriad like this? The little bastard awakened his evil and destruction affinities. Myriad yelled before Ben could answer. He's just trying to create situations where people will argue that killing him is for the good of the world. He says he cares about his life, and then goes out of his way to grow skills that are destined to cause me problems. Okay, in my defense, I did it for the world as much as I did it for myself, Ben explained. I don't really care about the skills. I wanted the attribute bonuses since I'm modifying souls in a day. But the fact that both should be doing some heavy lifting to help me level my sacrilege is also a big bonus too. Ugh! At the same time Myriad let out a pained scream. Hellori was shoving her hands into his chest, leaving only Nair among them clear-headed enough to talk to, the god frowning at what he'd heard but nothing more. Well, as shocking as this is, I suppose it's not actually that shocking, at least comparatively. As frankly disturbing as it is to hear that you reached the 3rd tier for 2 more skills, and ones you don't care about at that, considering what you've been doing to Quox to earn then, it's somehow more of a surprise that you didn't get them sooner. It was actually Harrow I used. I traded my Forbidden God out for a different model, which we're going to have to talk about later because I'm sure it's going to be noticed, but as for my awakenings, I'm actually half convinced that inclinations don't naturally want to reach the 3rd tier. Look at me, I had tortured Quox's soul for, from his perspective, hundreds of thousands of years by this point. I've turned him to nothing and then fixed him again and again and again, and yet it still wasn't enough until I added a bit of variety to the mix by changing to another god. Hell, that's not even the only one I should be awakening at this point. Making souls applies to my soul affinity, and at this point I've made billions. The fact that I haven't managed to push it beyond its limit either is kind of a testament to the ridiculousness that is getting those particular skills to the 3rd tier even compared against the regular difficulty. All the more so when you factor in every other bonus I have going to the 2. That would explain why we've never managed to create an inclination god in the past, Hellori said, sounding largely distracted as she spoke. We did try to get some variety to see if certain 3rd tier skills could be more beneficial than others for when the invasion came, so we could try to produce more of that type, but unfortunately, given the nature of producing a 3rd tier, success and failure were both pretty random and we did not get very far in a lot of different areas. Unauthorized duplication. This narrative has been taken without consent. Report sightings. And then what came with them? Nair wanted to ask, thinking of the bonus skills but getting a different answer first. Well, I got a new title called Record Breaker, which I'm assuming has to do with me being the first mortal to get more than 2 3rd tier skills. If that was the case, then the first mortal to get 2 3rd tier skills would have claimed that title for themselves too, which didn't happen. I'd assume that you getting it then was more of a coincidence, one new record on top of the ones you already hold. Most titles, most jobs, most awakened skills dash. Aw, Nair, you're gonna make me blush. And anything else then, Ben? Just the skills. 2 new touch ones which, I'm gonna be honest, feels pretty lame. I'm sorry, what do you mean, touch skills? You know, like Artisan's touch, only in this case destructive and evil touch. What? The god asked in confusion. But that's not a skill category. Only Artisan's touch existed before, and that's something gods would make to give out to worthy believers or as trial rewards. Well, it's not like I got that one from the gods myself, and if it wasn't a category before, then it is now. A very lame category, given that as the holder of both evil and destruction authority, the fact that my bonus skills for these awakenings do the same thing as those original skills but weaker is more than a little disappointing. And they're both 1st tier too. Seriously, I know I was only supposed to have like a 10% chance of getting 2nd tier skills for 3rd tier awakenings, but I really feel like awakening an inclination should boost those odds a bit, you know? To be fair, it could be boosting the odds and you still just didn't get them. Okay, yeah, that's possible, but the thought's going to bum me out. Ugh. So did you learn anything about those two stupid authorities then? Myriad asked once he managed to pull himself together, getting a confident nod for the question. Lots. 1. I can detect evil and destructive skills in people now with varying levels of precision based on if they're used for either evil or destruction. The holder views them as being evil or destructive, or society around me views them as evil or destructive. I'm not sure if my own view comes into play. I don't really view any skills as evil, and I wouldn't really say many of them are inherently destructive either. Bearing destruction, which I'll look at Delaire as an example later to see if I'm getting anything from it. Beyond that, I seem to be able to let people access the lowered leveling thresholds that an inclination provides, and since it's at the 3rd tier, the amount it reduces is rather significant by now. It's almost like you've begun to specialize into helping others grow at this point, Nair muttered, comparing what he had just been told to how Ben would help teach, awaken people, and rush others through jobs. It would be interesting if that were the case. The testing I was able to do on this front was limited, but there doesn't seem to be a mana cost with doing it, and the effect seems to be boosted when I connect to someone, though I need to study it more, as well as conduct some research on the range for when I'm not connected, as well as the effect duration. As for parts of it that help me though, I've made one significant discovery. I don't like this little dramatic pause, his god muttered, nothing he was hearing from his apostle a comfort. That's because you're a worrywart, Myriad. Anyway, it seems like I can now judge which evil and destructive acts give me the most skill experience for any given ability I have. That was absolutely worth being a worrywart about. And as interesting as that is, that doesn't necessarily mean it should be a focus though. Nair put out in the hopes of dampening any of Ben's most violent fantasies. As powerful of a boost as a 3rd-tier inclination is sure to give a skill, there's sure to be many cases where using them in such a way would still be less effective than using them in more reasonable manners. And, while I don't actually buy that argument even for a second, relax. I'm not going to become any worse just because of this option now. Unless it helps me connect to the 3rd tier. Thanks for the asterisk, Myriad grumbled. What it does, Ben went on, is show me how to improve in a specific area I've been struggling in. For using the forbidden gods as training materials, I was just fumbling around blind before. Now though? Now I can tell exactly what I can do to them for the best effect. Psychopath. Myriad, you goddamn bastard dash. Put a pin in that. Hellori cut him off before he could show off just how colorful his vocabulary could get. There's something else we need to discuss here. Something beyond swearing at my god for giving a new title? Yeah. Because this is unexpected. Unexpected how? What did you find while you were fiddling around in there? You said there's no mana cost for applying this ability to others? Well, I think I've found the reason. Okay, I'll bite. Why? You're giving off divinity. Oh, okay. Ben. This demands slightly more of a reaction than just an okay. Hellori yelled at him, getting a small shrug in return. I mean, I started giving off divinity when I became the demigod of growth and gain, didn't I? Speaking of, now that I'm at the 9th level of that, how much am I giving off there? When did you reach the 9th? Nair cut in Ben's growth in that particular skill just as much of a cause for curiosity. Both authorities came with a level to it. It's not important. Now, Hellori? Currently? Significantly more than a naturally born demigod. But that's not the point. You couldn't use that divinity, Ben. At least not with intent. The bit you got from replacing your heart has basically just gone to strengthening yourself. What you currently have though, you're using it. But how is that possible? Nair asked. Ben is mortal? The 3 gods turned to him as it was said, none appearing entirely convinced by the statement before turning back to each other, leaving Ben mildly offended as they did. Regardless of whatever Ben might be right now, it doesn't matter. If I had to guess, I'd say it likely comes down to the nature of those skills. When he dies, he's going to be a proper god of evil and destruction. I see, Nair muttered, Myriad instantly in agreement. When you put it that way, it might make sense. Then maybe explain it to your still entirely mortal apostle here, who doesn't instantly have the context for this? Ben, I told you before when discussing Own and the soul mages, there is technically a difference between a god of souls and a god of soul magic, Myriad explained. Although in this case we can now use you as an example. If you were to awaken your material manipulation to the third tier and then die, you could argue that you'd be a god of destruction magic since that skill merged into it. At the same time, what Hellori is getting at is that you'd also become a god of destruction that would rule over that domain in a far more conceptual way. Technically, any destructive skills or acts would fall under that umbrella. Same for your evil skills. It's a level of broadness that mortals simply don't reach, Hellori explained. And to be fair, many gods don't hold such broad domains either. While not necessarily better than other divinities, you trade the broadness for a weaker overall power compared to a more narrow field. It's the fact that a mortal managed it that makes the difference. You said you think inclinations as a skill class are uninclined to awaken? Well, seeing this, I agree because while any awakening would change the nature of your soul, it looks like the nature of those ones might have changed it to the extent that you now have a minor bit of access to such things. Okay, interesting. A few questions then. 1. How comparable is it to the amount of divinity from my demigod nature? The same, which would imply gaining that connected the two. Perhaps making these awakenings easier than it would have been, or even just possible at all, or maybe it's just linked your demigod qualities to your authorities to allow you to grow the bit of divinity you have without having to level those two skills, which I will admit is worrying to think about. If your divinity is already usable and above a normal demigod's, how might it grow if you were to awaken your divine body or level those authorities? An uncomfortable possibility considering that you're going to continue to do the very things that awakened them in the first place. Support the author by searching for the original publication of this novel. Okay, something to look forward to then. Seeing if it grows the next time I manage to pull off either tantalizing option dash. Not the words I would use to describe such a thing, Myriad muttered. But that brings me to my next question. What's powering it? You guys power your divinities with your faiths, right? Short answer, Hellori told him. It's complicated. Slightly longer answer? That while we use our faith, for you it will take more study to be sure, but I think it's going to be a combination of things. Some of the faith you naturally produce might be being siphoned off towards it, though since Myriad didn't seem to notice a reduction it would be a small amount, or you may potentially be using a minor bit of mana instead, just at a low enough volume that you aren't feeling as it's spent when compared against your recovery rate, making it feel like there's no cost to you. And then when it comes to using Connect with it, you said you feel like it's more effective, so I suspect you're bypassing any cost to it altogether by directly touching a target's soul. Really, it will be hard to know with any certainty without a fair degree of experimentation overall. But something is certainly going towards it. Perhaps even a combination of mana and faith to keep the cost down. Interesting. Well, if I make any exciting discoveries about it while I'm trying to figure it out, then I'll let you know. But for now, we have something else to talk about too. Why? Myriad groaned out, not ready for any more reveals after everything Ben had already done. Even if his apostle just waved him off. You already know about this one, you should be emotionally prepared. Me and Myriad already informed Fix that I've leveled my sacrilege so that he could try and prepare for the inevitable reveal of it. What I want to do is inform him of my new level to it and 2 awakenings too in order to make a proper reveal to the gods about it. The sooner the better. Rather than holding off on it for as long as you can? Hellori asked him. Yeah, because as long as I can probably isn't going to be for much longer no matter what I do. It's probably clear to anyone trying to keep an eye on me that I've been trying to hide my current status, and with there having been witnesses to my awakenings yesterday that might get caught thinking about what they saw even though I was blocking them from the gods with my sacrilege, and considering that one of the god crystals in Analia has obviously been swapped out, someone's going to get suspicious. Considering how many are probably watching the people around me since they can't keep an eye on me, there's still plenty that's got to be raising some worry and curiosity up here, and if I was in that position, I already know how I'd try to find out. There's going to be some massive crowds for all of the soul modifying I'm about to be doing. If I was in the position of any god looking to raise a fuss about me, I'd find any awakened analysis holder there might be around to take a peek at my skills, or just as likely, wait for Yuzu and Elvit to slip up and look if I'm going to be around them all for a prolonged period of time. Even if it will still be bad, a controlled reveal would still be better than an uncontrolled one. Nair agreed, leaving only one more question to consider. Who among us is going to break the news to Fixed? I mean, I really don't mind doing it myself, Ben offered, only to be met with immediate denial from all three deities. We really don't need you doing anything to give him any more stress when we'll be relying on him to try and arrange things to end for you in a somewhat reasonable manner, Hellori told him. You just go down for the night while we talk to him and arrange to have a meeting started immediately, after we discuss strategy a bit of course, and try not to get in any trouble in the meantime. Okay. But to be clear, you think you'll have your meeting started by breakfast time for me? I'm sure it will have been going on for hours by that point. Why? Because I promised Thera I'd tell her what happened. So I don't want me revealing it to her to reveal it to the other gods beforehand too in case anyone's been poking around her head when I'm not around. In that case, I'll leave you guys to it. Good luck.